41. Kill them all, 5 million taels of silver. Just as Shang Heng was worried, a black figure suddenly flew out of the sword storm. Everyone looked closely, and it was none other than Tianju, heavenly termination, Shengrant revered person. At this moment, his body was covered in dense sword wounds, his eyes wide open, and he was as dead as could be. Bang! Another loud bang echoed. The small storm exploded with a roar. Only Lu Changsheng stood in place holding the hook blade, while Lu Tiayi was nowhere to be found. Not far away, a red figure was frantically fleeing. This guy is simply not human. Not only does he possess limitless strength and endless protective aura, but he can also extract the essence from my sword techniques and incorporate it into his own blade techniques. Lu Tiayi was truly terrified. Tianju, heavenly termination, Shengrant revered person, was already dead, leaving him to fight alone, which was unsustainable. If he continued to fight, he feared he would be exhausted to death. However, after running only a dozen steps, Lu Tiayi felt his body disobey him, devoid of strength. He lowered his head and saw a massive wound extending from his left shoulder to his right leg, almost splitting him in half. I actually died, here. Lu Tiayi coughed up large mouthfuls of blood, his face pale and desolate, a mix of confusion and disbelief, his eyes filled with despair and unwillingness. 10 years ago, godly blade ancestor couldn't kill him, so how could he die at the hands of someone who wasn't even a grandmaster? I, Lu Tiayi, have killed countless enemies and roamed the Jianggu my entire life. I never expected to be buried here today. Ha 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 ha. Lu Tiayi's face was full of self-mockery, blood flowed from his torn wound, and soon after, his body collapsed with a crash, dead. The number 1 Grandmaster of Zhao, guest elder of Four Seas Auction House, perished in Qingzhou. Everyone was petrified, their faces ashen. The former number 1 Grandmaster was actually slain by a young man. To everyone, it was nothing short of a fantasy. Now, either you voluntarily leave your auction items, or I kill you and then take your auction items. Lu Chengsheng's devilish voice echoed once more. With the bloody corpses of the 3 Grandmasters laid out before them, no one dared to utter a single word of defiance this time. Those who had spent hundreds of thousands of taels to purchase the auction items now respectfully placed them before Lu Chengsheng. Seeing the millennial fire spirit mushroom, 8 extremes collapse, meteor chasing moon step, millennial stone marrow, and other treasures finally fall into his hands, Lu Chengsheng felt incredibly comfortable. At this moment, a middle-aged man carefully placed 2 auction items in front of Lu Chengsheng, then turned and quickly departed. Stop, Lu Chengsheng suddenly spoke to that person. Are you from the Zhou family? Lu Chengsheng frowned. On the scene, only the Zhou family had purchased 2 items, everyone else had only bought 1. The man immediately knelt down and explained, I was merely a servant who followed Zhou Wudao in my early years, I have no Zhou family bloodline in my body. Alright, it's not important anymore. Go back and tell the Zhou family that Zhou Wudao offended me. Tell the Zhou family to prepare 500,000 taels of silver in 3 days and send it to Ruiyin. If they fail to do so, in 3 days, I will wipe out the entire Zhou family. Yes, this humble one will certainly report Lord's words truthfully. The man breathed a sigh of relief, kowtowed a few times as if granted a great pardon, and then ran out of the auction house. After packing up the 10 auction items, Lu Chengsheng then had Zhang Linger, the beautiful auctioneer from before, take him to the auction house's storeroom. Since he had already thoroughly offended the Four Seas auction house, he might as well go all the way. The storeroom was almost entirely filled with silver. There were over 700,000 taels of actual silver, plus silver notes, totaling over 5 million taels of silver. The majority of this was the surplus from this auction. Besides that, there were other rare treasures kept as backup auction items, only 7 or 8 pieces, and their value was inferior to any single item from this large auction. However, even a small mosquito is still meat, so Lu Chengsheng packed them all up. Although this time he had offended many forces, including the Four Seas auction house, seeing such a rich haul, Lu Chengsheng still felt it was quite worthwhile. Especially those 5 million taels of silver, how many times could he use the simulator with that? By the time he used up all this money, his strength would probably be unmatched by anyone. At that time, if those first-rate forces still dared to trouble him, they would be seeking their own demise. When Lu Chengsheng emerged from the storeroom with a joyous expression, Shang Heng and his junior sister had not yet left. Senior Lu, Shang Heng's expression was respectful, and he was about to say something when Lu Chengsheng interrupted him. You can just call me Brother Lu. We hit it off at first sight, calling me senior is too formal. Shang Heng was stunned by these words, his expression deeply moved, with a torrent of words in his heart, but in the end, he only managed to blurt out one sentence, Brother Lu, be careful of the Four Seas auction house. I heard from my master that the headquarters of the Four Seas auction house is in Jin country, thousands of miles away, and there is more than one Grand Master in the auction house. Brother Shang, you're thoughtful. I'll be careful. Lu Chengsheng cupped his fists at him, then left the auction house with Song Wanjin. Looking at Lu Chengsheng's departing back, Shang Heng seemed to make a certain decision and said to Qian Wenwen, who was beside him, Junior sister, I've decided. After I return this time, I will not emerge from seclusion until I achieve a breakthrough to the innate realm. The events of the auction had given him a profound realization, in this world, strength is everything. With strength, one can do as they please. Shang Heng's aptitude was not bad, he had simply lacked a determined resolve to advance in the martial Tao. He was very confident in himself, believing that after this period of seclusion, when he met Brother Lu again, he would already be in the innate realm. Next, Lu Chengsheng did not return to Ruyi Inn but went to Jubao Money House, the closest money house to Four Seas auction house. With so many silver notes in his hand, if he didn't exchange them for silver, they were just waste paper to him. Lord Lu, that marrow cleansing pill, I wonder if it could. On the way to Jubao Money House, Song Wanjin cautiously asked. That medicinal pill was bought by the Zhou family for 160,000 taels of silver. If you can afford that price, there's no harm in selling it to you. Lu Chengsheng said lightly. He had consumed the marrow cleansing pill in the simulator, and its effect was far inferior to the vermilion fruit, so it was useless to him now. Thank you, Lord. After I return, I will immediately raise the silver. Song Wanjin gritted his teeth and agreed. 160,000 taels of silver would be a significant strain on the Song family's finances, but if they could truly cultivate their youngest son, Song Feiyu, into a martial Tao genius, then the Song family's business might have a chance to advance further in the future. Jubao Money House was the largest money house in Sanhe City. However, when Lu Chengsheng arrived there, even after emptying the money house's silver reserves, he only managed to exchange for 1,500,000 taels of silver. Next, he had no choice but to visit over a dozen money houses in Sanhe City to exchange all the silver notes in his possession for actual silver. Afterward, he deposited all this silver into the simulator, and the simulator's balance instantly became over 5,300,000, the highest value ever. 42. Slash with the Divine Sword, breakthrough in sword skills. After returning to Ruyi Inn, Lu Chengsheng eagerly activated the simulator. With so much money, he didn't know how he could possibly spend it all. Do you want to use the simulator? Each use costs 5,000 gold. Use it. Simulation begins. At 17, you consecutively slew 3 Grand Masters at the Four Seas auction house and then looted the auction house clean. Your name shook the world, and you were hailed as the foremost Grand Master. The day after looting the Four Seas auction house, you went to Zushin Little Courtyard to meet with Suzaku Honored One. Suzaku Honored One invited you to join the demon sect, but you refused, and you parted ways unhappily. Half a month later, the 4 honored ones of the demon sect all came out to attack you. The result was 3 escaped and 1 died. 18 days later, you refined the Millennial Fire Spirit Mushroom and Millennial Stone Marrow. Your Suzaku True Energy and Hu-Tu Protective Aura surged significantly. A month later, a great Grand Master from the Four Seas auction house, nicknamed Eastern Sea Flute Saint, came to your door. You fought for an hour, and ultimately, Eastern Sea Flute Saint was defeated and fled. Your reputation soared, and Tianji Pavilion began to pay attention to you. Afterward, you came to the Godly Blade sect. Because you killed Lu Tiei, the fatal divine sword, you unintentionally avenged the Godly Blade ancestor's grandson, so the Godly Blade ancestor received you very grandly. After 3 rounds of drinks, you proposed to borrow the Godly Blade sect's town-preserving saber technique, Godly Blade Slash, for a look. The Godly Blade ancestor did not immediately agree, but instead said he wanted to see your strength. Afterward, you fought for an hour, with no clear victor. The Godly Blade ancestor recognized your strength and said that if you were willing to join the Godly Blade sect, he could personally teach you the Godly Blade Slash. You agreed. You became an elder of the Godly Blade sect and thereafter began to cultivate saber technique with the Godly Blade ancestor. The Godly Blade ancestor told you that to learn Godly Blade Slash, you must first cultivate the Godly Blade Sect's 81 basic saber techniques. You began to diligently practice basic saber techniques. With the Godly Blade ancestor's personal guidance, your learning progress was terrifyingly fast. Half a year later, you had learned 42 basic saber techniques. At this moment, 3 mysterious great-grand masters suddenly descended and besieged you. When the Godly Blade ancestor arrived, he only saw your cold corpse on the ground. You died. This Tianji pavilion is really annoying. 3 mysterious great-grandmasters said it was obvious without thinking that it must be Tianji pavilion's doing. Originally, everything was developing in a good direction. He was peacefully learning saber technique in the Godly Blade sect. Who knew that Tianji pavilion would jump out again to kill him? If I can't provoke them, I can at least hide from them. Lu Chengsheng decided to resume his old ways. Lay low and develop. Choose to, again. At 17, you consecutively slew 3 grandmasters at the Four Seas auction house. Your name shook the world, and you were hailed as the foremost grandmaster. The next day, you did not keep your appointment at Zhu Xin Little Courtyard. Instead, you went to the Godly Blade sect. 7 days later, you arrived at the Godly Blade sect. After gaining the Godly Blade ancestor's approval, you began to diligently practice basic saber techniques. A month later, Eastern Sea Flute Saint of the Four Seas auction house appeared, intending to capture you. To avoid attracting the attention of Tianji Pavilion, you had the Godly Blade ancestor repel Eastern Sea Flute Saint on your behalf. Half a year later, you finished practicing all 81 basic saber techniques. The Godly Blade ancestor praised you as a once-in-a-century saber technique prodigy, and then passed on the Godly Blade Slash to you. After flipping through the Godly Blade Slash secret manual once, your expression turned from excitement to silence. It turned out that Godly Blade Slash was not merely a move, it also had an internal skill that could cultivate saber chi and saber protective aura indistinguishable from true chi. However, this also meant that you would have to abolish one internal skill. After much deliberation, you ultimately decided to use the Muscle Forging Classic to resolve this problem. 2 more months passed, and you found Zuogong Mountain. You used the Life and Death Seal imprint to control hundreds of Xuanwu Hall disciples there, making them search Zuogong Mountain thoroughly for the High Monk's AC copyright. At 18, the High Monk's AC copyright was successfully found. Because everyone on Zuogong Mountain was under your control, this news did not leak out. But to be safe, you cleaned out a dozen or so informed individuals under the guise of internal conflict, and had other disciples continue searching, while you quietly returned to the Godly Blade sect. At 19, your Muscle Forging Classic entered the second layer, and you began to cultivate Godly Blade Slash. At 20, your progress with Godly Blade Slash was unsatisfactory. You consumed the Millennial Stone Marrow, and your saber skill's internal energy surged by 60 years of cultivation, directly achieving a breakthrough to become an innate saber Dao expert. At 21, your Godly Blade Slash again encountered a bottleneck. You consulted the Godly Blade ancestor, who told you that this was due to your unstable saber Dao foundation. Next, you should focus on saber technique. You took the Godly Blade ancestor's advice and began to diligently cultivate saber technique. At 23, you mastered 10 intermediate saber techniques, and your Godly Blade Slash improved. At 24, the demon sect leader discovered the abnormality of the Xuanwu Hall disciples. Through the Life and Death Seal imprint on them, he traced it back to you. The demon sect leader believed that the High Monk's AC copyright had a high probability of falling into your hands, so he traveled day and night to the Godly Blade sect. 10 days later, the demon sect leader led a group of demon sect experts to attack. You and the Godly Blade ancestor jointly fought the demon sect leader, but were still no match. This demon sect leader is too terrifying. Even with the Godly Blade ancestor and I teaming up, we couldn't defeat him. Lu Chengsheng was silent for a moment. One must know that in the simulation, he had fought the Godly Blade ancestor to a draw. This was equivalent to 2 Lu Chengshengs fighting 1 demon sect leader, yet they still couldn't win. As expected of someone who could break through beyond the innate realm in the future, it's estimated that this demon sect leader had already surpassed other great grandmasters by more than 1 level. An hour later, the Godly Blade ancestor died in battle, and you escaped, heavily wounded, by virtue of your superb lightness skill. After you had fled 300 li, the demon sect leader caught you and interrogated you about the whereabouts of the High Monk's AC copyright. Coughing blood, you said you could give him the C copyright, but in exchange, he must tell you how to break through beyond the innate realm, so you wouldn't die a confused ghost. The demon sect leader was greatly startled upon hearing this, wondering where you had learned such a secret. He then said nothing and directly performed soul searching on you. To prevent the demon sect leader from obtaining the whereabouts of the high monk's AC copyright, you severed your own heart meridian and died. Simulation ended. You can choose one of the following. 1. The cultivation realm at 24 years old. 2. The cultivation experience at 24 years old. I choose 1. As Lu Chengsheng made his choice, the internal energy of his muscle-forging classic doubled again. Subsequently, a sharp and formidable true qi appeared in Lu Chengsheng's dantian. This was precisely the saber Dao true qi refined from godly blade slash. As long as this saber Dao true qi was expelled from the body, it would transform into incomparably sharp saber qi. If attached to a bladed weapon, it would have an unstoppable effect. However, this saber Dao true qi gave Lu Chengsheng a feeling of being unrefined and difficult to control. The godly blade slash saber skill requires a large amount of saber technique experience as a foundation for advancement. And Lu Chengsheng only brought out the saber skill realm from this simulation, but he did not bring out the dozens of saber technique experiences. It was therefore quite normal for his control over saber Dao true qi to be insufficient. However, this flaw must be remedied as soon as possible, otherwise, if he harms himself before harming others, it would be a laughingstock. 43. Grand Master of the Sword. The Devil Star descends. Besides, for a godly blade slasher to advance to Grand Master and Great Grand Master, it also requires a massive amount of saber experience. Thinking of this, Lu Chengsheng decided to first conduct several saber experience simulations to push his saber Dao realm to its current limit. After that, cultivating godly blade slash would not only be twice as effective but might even allow him to break through to the Great Grand Master realm in one fell swoop. Again, A cost. 5,000 money. Simulation begins. A at 17, you joined the Godly Blade sect. A at 30, you cultivated all 221 sets of basic saber techniques of the Godly Blade sect to perfection. A at 40, you cultivated all basic saber techniques of the Godly Blade sect to perfection. A at 76, you cultivated all 187 sets of intermediate saber techniques of the Godly Blade sect to perfection. Your saber realm breakthrough to incipient. A at 124, you died of old age. A choose 2. A at 17, you joined the Godly Blade sect. A at 65, you cultivated all 56 advanced saber techniques of the Godly Blade sect to perfection. Your saber realm breakthrough to transcendent. A at 124, you died of old age. A at 46, you cultivated all advanced saber techniques of the Godly Blade sect to perfection. Your saber realm breakthrough to saber intent realm. A at 70, you cultivated all 18 top-tier saber techniques of the Godly Blade sect to perfection. By then, you had learned all saber skills of the Godly Blade sect. In terms of saber mastery, even Godly Blade Ancestor was slightly inferior to you. But you always felt something was missing. Unfortunately, Godly Blade Ancestor had already died of old age by then, and no one in the Godly Blade sect could guide you. After months of self-exploration, you finally understood that although you practiced saber techniques daily, you lacked experience in actual combat. This was why your saber techniques had been unable to break through to the next level. At 71, you stepped out of the Godly Blade sect, determined to fight across the world with your aging body to achieve the final transformation of your saber techniques. You successively challenged the great grandmasters of various first-rate righteous path forces in Zhao. You won 5 out of 5 battles, shocking the world. You were known as the Saber Maniac. At 72, still feeling unsatisfied, you moved to Wu country. Tianji Pavilion disregarded martial forest ethics and sent several great grandmasters to ambush you. In the end, you killed one and died of exhaustion. You died. At 17, you arrived in Jin country and began to stir up the martial forest, challenging various major forces. At 18, you established a formidable reputation in Jin country. At 19, you wiped out 3 first-rate forces consecutively, shaking the Jin country martial forest. The sword immortal of the Heavensa Examen Piaoshui, who had been in seclusion for 30 years, was invited out. Examen Piaoshui invited you to a decisive battle at the Forbidden Summit. In the end, you died under Examen Piaoshui's ultimate move, a flying immortal from beyond the heavens. You fought valiantly in all directions. At 19, you died at the hands of Examen Piaoshui. You fought valiantly in all directions. At 18, you died under the siege of several great Grand Masters from Tianji Pavilion. You fought valiantly in all directions. At 19, during the life and death duel with Examen Piaoshui at the Forbidden Summit, you comprehended the true meaning of the Saber Dao. Your saber techniques advanced further, reaching the Saber Force realm. You comprehended the Saber Skilla Instant Shadow Slash. In the end, you and the Sword Immortal of the Heavens, Examen Piaoshui, perished together. Choose 2. Boom. A terrifying torrent of saber experience, like a great river, once again crashed into Lu Changsheng. This was the 4th level of Saber, the Saber Force realm, which he finally achieved after more than 20 simulations. Lu Changsheng slightly closed his eyes. The sharp saber chi that had originally emanated from his body due to comprehending saber intent once again retracted into his body until it dissipated without a trace, appearing no different from before he had even touched the Saber Dao. Only Lu Changsheng himself knew the earth-shattering changes he had undergone during the 2 hours of simulation. The so-called Saber Realm, according to the memories obtained from the Godly Blade sect, is roughly divided into 4 levels. The mediocre need not be mentioned. Being able to cultivate several second-rate saber techniques to perfection, with subtle and precise force, reaches the 1st level, Incipient Realm. A further advancement, mastering several first-rate saber techniques to an exquisite degree, brings saber techniques to the 2nd level, Transcendent Realm. At this realm, one is considered a master of the saber in the Zhonggu. However, the 3rd level, Saber Intent, is significantly more difficult. It requires the saber practitioner to integrate the strengths of various schools, ultimately achieving the unity of man and saber. Only then can Saber Intent be born. Once Saber Intent is unleashed, it shakes the soul and chills the enemy's heart. At this realm in the Zhonggu, one can make a name for themselves and is considered a famous Saber Dao Grandmaster. Lu Tiayi, being in the corresponding Sword Intent realm among the 4 Sword Dao realms, appeared so terrifying. In the Saber Force realm I am currently in is already the pinnacle of the Saber Dao in the Zhonggu. Only the founding ancestral master of the Godly Blade sect has ever reached such a realm. In terms of saber mastery alone, I am the first in Zhao. Godly Blade ancestor becomes an apprentice in front of me. A grand confidence surged within Lu Changsheng. Incipient, transcendent, saber intent, saber force. Each step is a new heaven. Upon reaching the Saber Force realm, he had reached the extreme of moves and transcended the cage of moves, able to suppress others with a majestic saber force. For him, reaching the Saber Dao Great Grand Master realm was no longer difficult at all. Continue the simulation. Cost 5,000 money. Simulation begins. At 17, you comprehended Saber Force, reaching the 4th Saber Realm. Afterward, you came to the Godly Blade sect. You discussed the Tao with Godly Blade Ancestor for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, Godly Blade Ancestor looked up to you with immense respect and voluntarily handed over Godly Blade Slash for you to comprehend. A month later, the Eastern Sea Flute Saint from the Four Seas Auction House came to your door and was cut down by your 3 sabers, shocking the world. Tianji Pavilion began to pay attention to you, this peerless prodigy. Half a year later, with the help of Millennial Stone Marrow and a large amount of resources from the Godly Blade sect, you stepped into the Saber Dao Grandmaster realm. At this time, 3 great Grandmasters from Wu country attacked. A Godly Blade Ancestor held back 1 person for you. You fought 2-on-1, killing both of them. The great Grandmaster held back by Godly Blade Ancestor was terrified and fled for his life. Your achievements spread, and the Zhonggu of Zhao, Wu, and Jin countries was in an uproar, all believing you to be the greatest genius of this continent in thousands of years. Soon after, Heaven's secret old man, bringing the only 3 remaining great grandmasters from Wu country, attacked again. You and Godly Blade Ancestor jointly repelled them, and Heaven's secret old man was even injured by you. At 18, your saber chi reached major achievement. At 19, you comprehended the connection between heaven and man. At 20, you successfully opened your saber aperture. At the age of 20, you became the second Saber Dao Great Grand Master in Zhao. A. Shortly after breakthrough to Great Grand Master, you attacked Tianji Pavilion in Wu country. Heaven's secret old man had already anticipated this and ambushed you within the sect with 3 Great Grand Masters from Wu country and 2 Great Grand Masters from Jin country. You fought 1 against 6. After a bitter battle, 3 of your opponents died, 2 fled, and Heaven's secret old man was captured alive by you. You asked Heaven's secret old man why he targeted you without cause. Heaven's secret old man said that you were a demon star descended to the world, and would bring misfortune to this world. He had already sent news of you back to the distant Great Qin dynasty, and you would not be able to escape. Regarding the inside story of the demon star, there will be specific explanations when Tianji Pavilion is destroyed. After speaking, Heaven's secret old man committed suicide. 44. Baptism of the vitality of heaven and earth, reborn. A layer of gloom settled in your heart. Though you didn't know what the future held, improving your strength was always the greatest guarantee. So, you returned to Zhao and mobilized a large number of people to search for the eminent monk's relics in Zuogong Mountain. Shi Jian, the demon sect leader, heard the news and dared not show his face. A month later, after you mobilized thousands of people to search, you successfully found the eminent monk's relics. Afterward, you used the eminent monk's relics as bait to invite the demon sect leader to meet at the Bright Moon restaurant in Sanhe City. The demon sect leader hesitated repeatedly but finally accepted the invitation. At the Bright Moon restaurant, you asked the demon sect leader if he had a way to break through beyond the innate realm. The demon sect leader was greatly surprised, then smiled bitterly and said he didn't know either. You concluded he was lying, captured him, crippled his martial arts, and imprisoned him in the dungeon. Next, you went to the demon sect headquarters, annihilated the demon sect, and obtained the subsequent cultivation technique of the vermilion bird true art, which could be cultivated to the Grandmaster realm. Afterward, you spent a great deal of money to obtain a top-tier soul-searching technique from the Demon Sound Pavilion in Jin Country of the Great Soul-Searching Hand. You intended to use the soul-searching technique to uncover the secrets of the demon sect leader. At 22, your great soul-searching hand reached major achievement. Just as you were about to perform soul-searching on the demon sect leader, a terrifying giant hand descended and instantly crushed you into dust. You died. It's not easy, I finally crossed the Great Grandmaster hurdle. Lu Chengsheng felt a little relieved. But what was that terrifying giant palm? Could it be a powerful expert from the Great Qin dynasty? However, this was supposed to be a martial arts world, but the style suddenly changed. What exactly is the realm beyond innate? Why did Tianji Pavilion say he was a demon star and insisted on killing him? What was the origin of the demon sect leader? Lu Chengsheng couldn't deduce much useful information from this simulation. Forget it, let's break through to Great Grandmaster first. The terrifying giant palm descending was at least 4 or 5 years away. By then, he would most likely have already broken through to beyond innate, and perhaps he would have a way to deal with it. Simulation ended. You can keep one of the following. 1. Cultivation realm at 22 years old. 2. Cultivation experience at 22 years old. I choose 1. Subsequently, Lu Chengsheng felt his saber chi surge dozens of times, then quickly reach its limit and transform into saber protective aura. When the saber protective aura filled every inch of his physical body, a dozen or so acupuncture points subtly pulsed. Once the saber apertures opened, it would be time to draw in origin chi from heaven and earth for cleansing and advance to the Great Grandmaster realm. Saber apertures are essentially chi apertures, but most saber Dao masters use saber protective aura to open chi apertures, so they habitually refer to them as saber apertures. Similarly, sword Dao masters also like to refer to chi apertures as sword apertures. The void realm around Ruyi emitted an inexplicable fluctuation, appearing hazy, as if the sky above was covered by a large amount of water mist. This is connecting with the origin chi of heaven and earth, but the commotion is indeed significant. If I'm not careful, it will tear the into shreds. Don't think the current water mist is harmless. When Lu Chengsheng draws in the origin chi of heaven and earth later, it will immediately become violent, and there will be great terror within it. Lu Chengsheng didn't hesitate. His physical body drifted like a wisp of smoke, and in dozens of breaths, he was far from Sanhe City, arriving by the Kangjiang River. It was almost dusk, and the setting sun was reflected in the Kangjiang River. In the golden light, there were only a few scattered fishing boats that had not yet returned home. The Taoist temple on the distant small mountain also lit up, particularly eye-catching. Lu Chengsheng sat cross-legged on a large rock by the river, instantly entering a state of a heaven-man interaction, forgetting self and object. The origin chi of heaven and earth began to violently surge. In Shenyang Temple, a disheveled old Taoist suddenly opened his eyes and looked in a certain direction as if on a pilgrimage. The origin chi of heaven and earth is moving so greatly as someone is opening their chi apertures and is about to draw in the origin chi of heaven and earth for cleansing who is advancing to great Grand Master. Besides the old Taoist from Shenyang Temple, who was closest, many innate martial artists in distant Sanhei City were also alarmed and rushed here. After all, witnessing someone else break through to great Grand Master is a rare spectacle for many in their lifetime. Boom! Under the scouring of saber protective aura, a total of 12 acupuncture points within Lu Chengsheng's physical body shone brightly. These chi apertures, normally hidden within the chi meridians and difficult for ordinary martial artists to detect in their lifetime, are precisely the bridges for the human body to communicate with the origin chi of heaven and earth. Once the chi apertures were opened, Lu Chengsheng felt his physical body instantly merge with the surrounding environment. The vast and pure origin chi between heaven and earth began to be attracted by the 12 chi apertures, continuously pouring down and refining his physical body. Drawing in the origin chi of heaven and earth to temper the physical body, this is a unique ability of a great Grand Master. And the effect of the first time is especially astonishing. After a long while, the complete metamorphosis of his entire physical body was finally finished. Lu Chengsheng slowly opened his eyes, feeling the changes in his physical body, and a smile bloomed on his face. His pure physical body strength had increased by about 50,000 jin again, reaching 450,000 jin. Coupled with the 3 protective auras Hu 2 protective aura, Vermilion Bird protective aura, and Divine Saber protective aura, he could unleash a force of 600,000 jin. In addition, the impurities in his physical body were greatly reduced, and his cultivation aptitude was improved again, increasing by about 2 times the initial amount. One must know that his cultivation aptitude had already reached 10 times its initial level before, and after that, no matter what methods he used, even long-term cultivation of the Marrow Cleansing Sutra, it was difficult to achieve significant growth. And this time, just one cleansing by the origin chi of heaven and earth increased his aptitude by another 2 times, which was undoubtedly very surprising. Of course, the biggest change was not the 2 points above, but his strength. In the great Grand Master realm, chi apertures are always open. Every move and every stance can draw upon the power of heaven and earth, increasing my attack power by at least tenfold. Lu Chengsheng carefully sensed all of this. After advancing to great Grand Master, the total amount of protective aura in the physical body would not change, but the quality would be purified considerably, gradually transforming from the Grand Master's true protective aura to the great Grand Master's heavenly protective aura. And the most important thing is that one can draw upon the power of heaven and earth, making every move and every stance possess immense power. It's like a person who was originally bare-handed suddenly gets a submachine gun. Their own strength doesn't change much, but the increase in attack power is terrifying. To what extent can I achieve a full power strike by manipulating the origin chi of heaven and earth now? Lu Chengsheng casually beckoned, and a piece of dead branch from the Kangjiang River fell into his hand. With his current saber technique realm, all things in heaven and earth can become a saber. Of course, if he were to use a divine weapon, the power would definitely increase by a few more points. Is that senior the one who broke through to great Grand Master? At this moment, many innate martial artists had arrived by the Kangjiang River, vaguely seeing a white-robed figure on the opposite side. Now that the origin chi of heaven and earth's disturbance had ended, and the source had disappeared, it was difficult for them to determine who had just broken through. It can't be him. This person is too young. A senior who can break through to great Grand Master must already have white hair and a flowing long beard. Someone immediately retorted. 45. Impossible, absolutely impossible. At this moment, another person said faintly, have you forgotten that the Four Seas auction house produced a ruthless individual who consecutively slew 3 Grand Masters, and it is said that he is also a youth? How could it be such a coincidence? The person who had just denied it still stubbornly argued. But then, they saw a dazzling saber light erupt from the white-clothed youth's hand. Where the saber light pointed, the void realm twisted. Boom! The saber light, as if it could cleave through all things in heaven and earth, fiercely struck the Kangjong River. The surging Kangjong River immediately splashed with waves, splitting into two. The Kangjong River, dozens of meters wide, was actually cut into two by that white-clothed youth with a single saber strike. A single saber strike to sever the river. Is this truly something achievable by human power? Everyone instantly fell silent, dumbfounded, feeling only disbelief. Even after the white-clothed youth disappeared and the highly raised water curtain subsided again, the crowd did not recover for a long time. Late at night, the Zhou family. Even though it was already the third watch, the Zhou family was still brightly lit. As the #1 powerful family in Sanhe City, the Zhou family had always been so luxurious, and the common people in this area had long grown accustomed to it. However, careful observers noticed that amidst the bright lights tonight, there was an atmosphere of tension and oppression. Connecting this with the words left by that ruthless individual at the Four Seas auction house during the day, many people looked at the Zhou manor with schadenfreude. So, the Zhou family also has this day. In the Zhou family's council hall, the family head, Zhou Ming, and all the old ancestors were gathered. The candlelight flickered brightly, illuminating the faces of Zhou Ming and the others, each looking haggard and withered, as if they had aged 10 years overnight. One by one, they sat with worried expressions, discussing countermeasures, but their hearts were filled with incomparable despair. When Zhou Wudao attended the auction during the day, he had already taken away most of the Zhou family's liquid silver. Now, the remaining liquid silver of the Zhou family was less than 30,000 taels. There was no way to gather 500,000 taels of liquid silver within 3 days. Moreover, now that Zhou Wudao, this stabilizing force, was dead, all the old enemies who had previously hidden their fangs jumped out. The Zhou family had originally wanted to borrow money to get through this difficulty, but under the joint blockade of their enemies, they met with obstacles everywhere. The only way to raise this silver now was to sell off the family's various properties. However, this move would undoubtedly be like cutting off the Zhou family's own flesh. Family head Zhou Ming had summoned the old ancestors for several hours, but not a single person was willing to put forward their properties to help the family overcome this difficulty. If the Zhou family could not gather 500,000 taels of liquid silver, and that fierce individual truly came knocking on their door 3 days later, how should they respond? The old ancestors discussed for a long time, and finally came up with a plan that made Zhou Ming almost vomit blood. Family head, why don't we split the family? Anyway, the old ancestor is dead, and the Zhou family now has no Grand Master to guard it. Even if we pay 500,000 taels of silver, the other enemies will not let the Zhou family off. It's better to divide the family assets and go our separate ways. In the future, whichever branch can survive, it will be up to fate. Zhou Ming's face turned ashen after hearing this. Although the old ancestor was dead, he, the family head, was still here. These people actually thought about splitting the family. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Zhou Ming slammed the table and flatly refused. If the family split, could he, Zhou Ming, still be the family head? Could he still have such great power as he did now? Then what other solution do you propose? Do you really want to sell off the family property? You should know that there are many jackals eyeing our Zhou family in Sanhe City right now. As soon as the news of selling off family property gets out, who knows how many people will strip our Zhou family to the bone and devour us completely. Upon hearing this, everyone fell silent again, remaining quiet for a long time. Why does it feel like going left is hell, and going right is also hell? Is there really no way out at all? Do you all need help? A cold voice suddenly rang out. Then, a cold-faced middle-aged man in black actually jumped down from the roof beam. Zhou Ming and the old ancestors were greatly alarmed. There were many innate experts present, yet no one had discovered this persona's presence for so long. Where did this old Sixa come from? Who are you? How dare you sneak into my Zhou family's vital area without permission? Zhou Ming was furious, pointing at the middle-aged man and loudly questioning him. At the same time, a large squad of guards rushed in from outside, surrounding the black-clad, cold-faced man. All of you, retreat. The eldest and most senior old ancestor suddenly stood up and stopped the guards, then looked at the middle-aged man and said with a trembling voice, Your Excellency, could you be the Six Doors detective, Lord Lang Wuking? I didn't expect you to recognize me. The cold-faced middle-aged man was slightly surprised. 10 years ago, when I was in Zhangzhou, I was fortunate enough to witness Detective Leng capture an important Grandmaster criminal, the eldest old ancestor said excitedly. Upon hearing this, the others present immediately gasped. Detective Leng. Unexpectedly, this person was the Detective Leng of Zhao's 6 doors. Zhao's 6 doors only had 4 detectives in total. Each of them was one of the top Grandmaster experts, and each possessed unique skills. This Leng Wuking was the 4th-ranked detective among the 4 great detectives. Although he was ranked last, he was the most ruthless, most merciless, and most unscrupulous in handling affairs among the 4 great detectives. Although Zhou Ming had never seen him, he had heard of his fame. After knowing this persona's identity, Zhou Ming immediately changed his demeanor, first dismissing the guards, then bowing down to Leng Wuking. Please, Detective Leng, save our Zhou family. Anyway, with Leng Wuking's strength, even if the Zhou family's old ancestor Zhou Wudao were to revive, he wouldn't be able to defeat him, so bowing to him was not shameful. Alright, get up. Leng Wuking waved his hand. Zhou Ming stood up, respectfully standing to the side. Leng Wuking slowly swept his cold gaze over everyone in the council hall, and said coldly, I have 2 reasons for coming here this time. First, to help your Zhou family escape its predicament. Upon hearing this, the Zhou family members immediately showed joy on their faces. Putting aside the imperial court behind Leng Wuking, just based on Leng Wuking's powerful strength, everyone believed that the Zhou family was now secure. Second, to deal with the white-clothed youth who murdered your Zhou family's old ancestor. Upon hearing this, everyone was surprised and uncertain, and the eldest old ancestor cautiously asked, could it be that the imperial court intends to take action against this person? Leng Wuking said coldly, that is natural. This person publicly assaulted Governor Zhao, a 3rd-rank imperial official, 2 days ago, and today he massacred the 4 Seas auction house, accumulating numerous debts of murder. This persona's actions simply show no regard for imperial laws and regulations. My Zhao does not allow such lawless and arrogant individuals to exist. Upon hearing this, everyone was overjoyed. Since the imperial court was going to take action against this person, the Zhou family could naturally rest easy. At this moment, Zhou Ming cupped his fists and asked, Detective Leng, this person was not well known in Zhao before, but now he has suddenly appeared. What is his background? A strange look appeared on Leng Wuking's face. This persona's background is very peculiar. He was originally a refugee beggar, later adopted as a foster son by unknown currency, Darthead in Yuyong City and named Liu Changsheng. After Thate Sente was murdered, this person suddenly erupted with innate strength, first destroying a local gang, and then destroying the Wang family, the largest family in Yuyong City. When he traveled by boat to Sanhe City, he again displayed the invincible strength of the Grandmaster realm, going on a killing spree. I have handled so many cases, yet I have never seen such a strange thing. Everyone looked at each other after hearing this. Why did Detective Leng's words sound like those of a Zhonggu storyteller? Leng Wuking knew that they found it hard to believe, which was actually normal. Even he himself, after receiving the intelligence, had repeatedly verified it several times before reluctantly accepting this astonishing fact. 46. Undercurrent surge, kill to create a bright world. Lord Leng, what should we do next? The elder of the clan respectfully asked. Leng Wuking said indifferently, a spider that wants to catch its prey must first weave a strong web. The 4 major gangs of Sanhe City, and dozens of large and small Zhonggu forces, are the web we are weaving for Liu Changsheng. When the web is complete, even if Liu Changsheng has monstrous abilities, he won't be able to escape. Ruyi Inn, Heaven Room Number 1. With Liu Changsheng's current strength, no one noticed anything unusual about his coming and going. Looking at the several secret manuals on the table, Liu Changsheng casually picked one up, flipped through it, and put it back. These were all obtained from the 4 Seas auction house. Besides the thick earth art which he had already learned, the other 3 were 8 Extremes Collapse, Meteor Chasing Moonstep, and Life and Death Seal Imprint. These 3 secret manuals were not complicated for Liu Changsheng, he had already learned them effortlessly during the previous 20-odd simulations. 8 Extremes Collapse is a secret method to increase explosive power, with a total of 8 layers. Each layer can increase strength by 50%, with a maximum temporary increase of 4 times the power. However, after Liu Changsheng learned it, He realized that this thing was only very useful for martial artists below the Grandmaster realm. For a Grandmaster, the effect was less than 1/10, and being able to temporarily increase strength by 40% was already good. For a horizontal cultivation Grandmaster like Lu Changsheng, it could only temporarily increase strength by 20%. And now that Lu Changsheng had achieved breakthrough to Grandmaster, it could only barely increase his strength by 10%, which could only be said to be better than nothing. As for Meteor Chasing Moon Step, it did significantly increase Lu Changsheng's speed, by about 20%, which was better than 8 Extremes Collapse. The Life and Death Seal imprint was useful in previous simulations, but now it has completely become a mere trifle. Because it can only enslave martial artists below the innate realm, and with Lu Changsheng's current strength, apart from a few people with extremely special identities, there is no need to waste that effort to enslave others. If the Life and Death Seal imprint could be improved in the future to be useful against those above innate, perhaps it could shine again. However, Lu Changsheng was not too disappointed. Any one of these secret manuals, if taken out, could still cause a bloody storm in the Jianggu. It was just that his strength improved too quickly, and these items faced obsolescence before they could even show their true value. Alas, it was all his fault for being too diligent and disciplined. So, the question is, after all this hard work, can he stop and rest a bit? The answer is of course not. After all, Lu Changsheng's motto is "A life never ends, struggle never ceases." The next moment, Lu Changsheng lay down on the bed in a comfortable position. A simulator, simulate for me. A detected that the host has achieved breakthrough to Grandmaster. One simulation costs 30,000 money. Do you wish to simulate? Looking at his balance of several million, Lu Changsheng suddenly felt that the simulator was a little cutie. Even the price increase was so weak. If you have the guts, increase it to 100,000 or 200,000, I have plenty of money. A simulate for me. A 30,000 money consumed, simulation begins. At 17, you became a Grandmaster of the Tao of the Blade. You thought you were about to embark on an invincible path, but you found that in the following days, everything went wrong. First, Song Family's business suffered a huge blow, and its assets were acquired by others. Then, the Dragon King Gang and Sword God Mountain jointly issued a Jianggu pursuit order against you. After that, rumors began to circulate in Sanhei City that you were a spy from Wu country, who came to Zhao to disrupt the Zhao martial forest. Even more outrageous, on the third day, outside the Ruyi Inn, dozens of common people appeared, tearfully accusing you of bullying men and women and committing numerous evil deeds. As your reputation in Sanhei City reached rock bottom, the Jiaolong Association, Ma Association, Smoky Rain Pavilion, and Tianying Sky Eagle Gate, the four major gangs of Sanhei City, united with dozens of small and medium-sized gangs to expel you. Who exactly is targeting me? A. Lu Changsheng frowned slightly. He had indeed offended many forces at the Four Seas auction house, but in previous simulations, these people either dared not retaliate, or they would directly attack him in an open fight. They had never resorted to such continuous underhanded tactics as in this simulation. All changes occurred after his breakthrough to Grandmaster. It seems that after certain people received the news, they did not dare to confront me openly, only resorting to underhanded means. A cold smile appeared at the corner of Lu Changsheng's mouth. He was not someone to be trifled with. Since they dared to scheme against him, they should be prepared for retaliation. You feel a large net closing in on you. Facing the joint expulsion by dozens of gangs in Sanhei City, the long-suppressed anger in your heart erupted. Regardless of the mastermind's purpose, you will use the blade in your hand to carve out a bright future. You massacred dozens of large and small gangs in Sanhei City, causing heads to roll. More than 30,000 people died by your hand. Your actions caused a huge uproar in the Zhao Jianggu. Led by the Dragon King Gang and Sword God Mountain, the Anti-Lu Alliance was formed in the Jianggu, with immense momentum, vowing not to rest until you, the Devil Head, were eliminated. You laughed in extreme anger, your fury rising even higher. At this tense moment, a richly dressed man claiming to be the third prince found you and said that if you were willing to pledge allegiance to him, he could settle the Anti-Lu Alliance for you. So, the mastermind is this guy. A cold glint flashed in Lu Changsheng's eyes. He wondered who had such great power to mobilize so many forces to oppose him. If it was someone from the Zhao imperial family, it would make perfect sense. This third prince was ambitious. He had previously colluded with the demon sect and caused his death several times in the simulator. Now, to recruit him, he resorted to all sorts of despicable tactics. Very good, he has found his own path to death. You sneered, directly cut off the third prince's head, and hung it outside the door. The imperial court was enraged by your actions and immediately joined the Anti-Lu alliance, issuing a challenge to you to fight to the death on Sword God Mountain 7 days later to settle the grudge. This imperial family is also cunning. They don't directly enter the fray themselves, instead, they want me to exhaust the power of the Zhonggu. Lu Chengsheng smiled coldly. From a rational perspective, this move was indeed the best choice. It could both exact revenge and weaken the unstable elements of the Zhonggu, while the imperial court would only lose a bit of face. You accept the challenge. 7 days later, you arrive at Sword God Mountain to battle the heroes. This battle lasted 3 days and 3 nights, fighting in utter chaos. Dragon King Shangdingtian, Floating Light Sword Master, 2 Imperial Family Grandmaster Old Ancestors, and dozens of Grandmasters were successively slain by you. The Anti-Lu Alliance directly collapsed and disintegrated. From this day on, your name became a taboo in the Zhonggu. The Imperial family made huge compensation to you, and the Eastern Sea Flute Saint, who had already entered Zhao territory, quietly turned back. You became the recognized #1 in Zhao, and Tianji Pavilion's attention to you suddenly increased. 3 months later, you mobilized a massive amount of manpower and found the Hai Monka's relic in Zuagong Mountain. You used the Hai Monka's relic as bait, inviting the demon sect leader to meet. The demon sect leader hesitated for a long time, but finally accepted the invitation. 47. 4 Symbols Mysterious Skills, a way to break through the innate. After meeting the demon sect leader, you did not get the information you wanted, so you turned against him and captured him, then directly performed soul scouring on him. From the demon sect leader's memory, you learned that he was not a native of Zhao, but came from the distant Great Qin dynasty. He brought a cultivation technique from the Great Qin dynasty, named 4 Symbols Mysterious Skill, This cultivation technique requires first cultivating the 4 true arts of Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, White Tiger, and Black Tortoise. Once the protective aura of these 4 true arts reaches major achievement, and the 288 chi apertures recorded within are opened, combining the 4 into 1 offers a chance to break through beyond innate. Upon seeing this, Lu Chengsheng's expression was quite excited. So this was the secret to the demon sect leader being able to break through beyond innate decades later. It seemed he no longer needed to worry about being stuck in the innate realm for a long time. Since there was a path forward, with Lu Chengsheng's diligence and self-discipline, he would surely be able to ascend to new heights. However, the 4 Symbols Mysterious Skill lacked the secret method for combining the 4 into 1. The demon sect leader had to find another way, first establishing the demon sect, then having the most talented individuals within the sect cultivate the 4 true arts, and finally absorbing his subordinates' cultivation through a blood sacrifice to forcibly combine the 4 into 1. The only flaw with this method was its low success rate, less than 30%. Later, the demon sect leader spent a great deal to learn the whereabouts of the muscle forging classic from Tianji Pavilion, and was overjoyed. He ordered his subordinates to search vigorously within the area indicated by Tianji Pavilion, but unexpectedly, you intercepted it, forcing him to come to the appointment, ultimately perishing at your hands. After understanding all the information, you found the 4 Symbols Mysterious Skill based on the demon sect leader's memory. Now, as long as you cultivate the 4 true arts to their extreme and then combine the 4 into 1, you have a high probability of breaking through beyond innate. At 18, your muscle forging classic entered the 3rd level, and you began to cultivate the Azure Dragon true art concurrently. At 19, your muscle forging classic entered the 4th level, and you began to cultivate the White Tiger true art concurrently. At 20, your Vermilion Bird true arts chi reached major achievement, and your Azure Dragon true art entered the innate realm. At 21, your muscle forging classic entered the 5th level, and you began to cultivate the Black Tortoise true art concurrently. Your White Tiger true art entered the innate realm. At 22, your Vermilion Bird true art opened 20 chi apertures, and your strength advanced another level. But before you could rejoice, a terrifying giant palm descended, striking you until your divine soul was annihilated. You died. Very good, this is very Tianji Pavilion. Seeing himself killed by a terrifying giant palm again, Lu Chengsheng felt no ripples in his heart. If the opponent's strength was just slightly stronger than his, he might have been angry, but if it was so strong that he could only look up to it, his heart was filled with only peace. A great Grand Master at 17. Even if he did nothing now, as long as the title of Great Grand Master of the Blade Dao spread, he would definitely attract the attention of Tianji Pavilion. In the subsequent simulations, he would probably have to deal with terrifying giant palms frequently. With such a short simulation time, if he wanted to break through to beyond an 8, these few million taels of silver would probably be far from enough. 8 Ida's time to establish my own force, Lu Chengsheng thought to himself. Whether it was for him to accumulate silver, or to search for the relics of eminent monks or cultivation resources for the 4 true arts, it required a massive amount of manpower. If he did everything himself, it would definitely exhaust him to death. A simulation ended. You can choose one of the following. A1, cultivation realm at 22 years old. A2, cultivation experience at 22 years old. I choose 1. Instantly, the attribute less internal energy in Lu Chengsheng's body grew stronger by a section, followed by the internal energy of Azure Dragon, White Tiger, and Black Tortoise appearing in sequence. The Azure Dragon and White Tiger internal energy quickly transformed into true Qi, and then the Vermilion Bird protective aura surged, continuously opening 20 Qi apertures within Lu Chengsheng's body before stopping. The Heaven and Earth origin Qi fluctuated again, but it was far less impactful than the previous breakthrough to Great Grand Master with a Godly Blade Slash. This does not mean that the Vermilion Bird True Art is inferior to the Godly Blade Slash. On the contrary, the Vermilion Bird True Art is far more powerful than the A Godly Blade Slash. The Godly Blade Slash can open a maximum of 40 Qi apertures, while the limit of the Vermilion Bird True Art is 72, nearly double that of the Godly Blade Slash. It was just that during the first breakthrough to Great Grand Master, it would cause Heaven and Earth origin Qi to infuse the body, leading to such a large commotion. Now that he had already experienced the infusion, the commotion from opening Qi apertures in the future would not be very large. This was good news for Lu Chengsheng. He wouldn't have to attract a large crowd of onlookers every time he opened a Qi aperture. He still preferred to break through quietly, without making a sound. According to the A Godly Blade Slash records, everyone has 365 Qi apertures in their body. Each of the 4 true arts can open 72 Qi apertures, totaling 288 Qi apertures. The Godly Blade Slash can open 40 Qi apertures, and half of them overlap with the Qi apertures opened by the 4 true arts. That is to say, if I cultivate these 5 cultivation techniques, I can open a total of 308 Qi apertures. After cultivating the Muscle Forging Classic to perfection, I can cultivate a total of 8 internal skills. I wonder if these last 3 can open all the Qi apertures. Lu Chengsheng murmured. Each Great Grand Master internal skill only opens multiple Qi apertures when first advancing to Great Grand Master. After that, the opening of each Qi aperture requires several years of a Great Grand Master's painstaking effort. To open 365 Qi apertures is a fantasy for most Great Grand Masters. But Lu Chengsheng was different. He had the simulator. He wasn't afraid of the immense effort required to open Qi apertures, only of not knowing the method and location of the Qi apertures. Otherwise, let alone 365, he would dare to open 3,650 for you to see. I'm meeting Suzaku tomorrow, so I should get some rest tonight and not stay up late. Lu Chengsheng glanced at the stars outside the window and pulled the blanket over himself. It wasn't about the warmth, but the feeling. Lu Chengsheng was quite looking forward to tomorrow's meeting. He had so many stories with Suzaku Honored One in the simulator that it now felt like an online friend meeting offline. Of course, he wasn't curious about Suzaku's appearance, but rather for Shijian, the demon sect leader behind Suzaku. This person held many secrets, such as his true identity, the origin of the 4 symbols' mysterious skill, and how to go to the Great Qin dynasty. The information on the simulator was too simple. He still needed to capture him and perform soul scouring personally. And to capture him, besides the eminent monk's relics, Suzaku Honored One should also be a very good starting point. The night passed without a word. The next morning, when Lu Chengsheng went out for breakfast, he startled Song Feian. Yesterday, Lu Chengsheng could only be considered handsome, not particularly striking in a crowd. But today, Lu Chengsheng's face was like jade, his eyes like morning stars, handsome and elegant, his entire being like a flawless piece of beautiful jade. Lu Chengsheng's change was so great that when Song Feian saw him again, she dared not recognize him for a moment, and 2 beautiful blushes flew onto her cheeks. Quite a few bold female guests came to strike up a conversation, causing Song Feian to secretly curse them for being shameless. 48. Building the hard courtyard, ruthless. All these changes were naturally brought about by Lu Chengsheng's complete transformation after his breakthrough to Great Grand Master and the infusion of heaven and earth origin qi yesterday evening. The pinnacle of martial Tao inherently leads people to evolve towards perfect life, so it can be said that the higher one's cultivation, the harder it is to find an ugly person. As for the thousand-faced demon lord, he was still incredibly ugly even though he was almost a grandmaster, truly an anomaly among martial artists. Song Feian, however, was not aware of these details. She knew that Lu Chengsheng had obtained a beauty-preserving pill from the Four Seas auction house yesterday, and she thought it was the pill's effect. This made her determined to acquire a beauty-preserving pill herself, no matter what, in the future. After breakfast, Lu Chengsheng left the Ruyi Inn, rented a carriage, and headed towards Zushin Little Courtyard. Sitting in the carriage, with his great grandmaster's keen martial Tao intuition, Lu Chengsheng could clearly perceive various prying gazes from all directions. There were curious ones, fearful ones, hateful ones, and a large number carrying hostility. Lu Chengsheng was not surprised. He had stirred up trouble at the Four Seas auction house, incurring countless enemies. As long as these people lurked in the shadows, he couldn't be bothered with them, but if they dared to jump out, he would kill every single one. The carriage traveled halfway before stopping, and soon after, it began to turn back. Some bold individuals, pretending to pass by casually, approached to look, only to find the carriage already empty, with no one inside. By the time people began to realize Lu Chengsheng had disappeared, he had already arrived in front of Zushin Little Courtyard. "Stop, who are you?" At the courtyard gate, two fierce-looking burly men blocked Lu Chengsheng. "I am Lu Chengsheng, invited here, please inform them," Lu Chengsheng said, cupping his fists. "Lu Chengsheng, we don't know him. Our courtyard master hasn't invited any guests. Please leave quickly, or don't blame us for being impolite." The two burly men exchanged glances, a mysterious glint flashing in their eyes, then waved their hands repeatedly. These two have a problem. Lu Chengsheng noticed something amiss from the subtle expressions of the two. Had something unexpected happened with Suzaku Honored One, or were they trying to give him a taste of their power? If it was the latter, such a trick was far too clumsy. Forget it, no matter the situation, why bother wasting words with you two pawns? Lu Chengsheng chuckled self-mockingly and shook his head. The two fierce burly men were enraged by his words, just about to teach this arrogant fellow a lesson, when a brilliant saber chi suddenly burst forth before their eyes. Their bodies were neatly split in two from top to bottom, with incredibly smooth cuts. If the scene wasn't too bloody, many might have thought these were four pieces of art. Entering Zushin Little Courtyard, Lu Chengsheng found it to be a sizable garden. The scenery here was exquisite, yet it was empty, without even an usher. If an ordinary person came here, they would surely be at a loss. But Lu Chengsheng's saber Dao had cultivated to the saber intent realm, and with his saber Dao Qi bursting forth, he soon remotely locked onto a person. Passing 3 thresholds, turning 5 corridors, and crossing a patch of flowers, he finally arrived by an arched bridge. On the arched bridge stood a graceful, slender woman in a red dress, with features as picturesque as a painting. She simply stood there, emanating a sense of endless beauty, yet also filled with an extremely subtle allure. "Lu Lang, why have you only just arrived? I thought you had forgotten your promise to me." The red-dressed woman's autumn water-like eyes cast a seemingly reproachful glance at Lu Chengsheng, and her mournful voice carried infinite seductive power, enough to stir any man's heart. "You sent people to block me at the entrance, and there's no usher. Now you're acting like a wronged young girl. Do you truly think my saber chi is dull?" Lu Chengsheng placed his right hand on the hilt of the saber at his waist. This saber was naturally not Hook, but just an ordinary refined 100-forged saber. Hook's appearance was too flashy, a 100-forged saber was enough for his daily use. "Lu Lang, you've misunderstood me. Did you know, this Zushin Little Courtyard is originally Azure Dragon Hall's territory, and you crippled Qinglong Venerable's beloved subordinate a few days ago, so, he's retaliating against you." Suzaku parted her red lips, her tone tinged with sorrow and resentment. Lu Chengsheng inwardly cried out that he couldn't take it, but his face remained serious, and he said indifferently, "Then where is Qinglong Venerable himself?" "Naturally, he's not in Sanhei City." Suzaku chuckled, covering her lips, "Otherwise, with that old dragon's personality, he would have already fought you." He's not qualified to be my opponent. Lu Changsheng shook his head, not putting Qinglong Venerable in his eyes. This extremely disdainful attitude, before Suzaku could react, more than a dozen chi leaked out from the shadows. These people were clearly Qinglong Venerable's loyal followers, originally hidden in the shadows to monitor the area, but Lu Changsheng's words broke their composure, their chi becoming unstable for a moment and leaking out. In fact, with Lu Changsheng's spiritual perception, he had already discovered them as soon as he arrived, but he had simply ignored them. Now they dared to leak their chi, which was equivalent to jumping in front of Lu Changsheng and provoking him, saying, "If you have the guts, come and chop me." "Very well, I'll send you off first." Lu Changsheng drew his saber, holding the long saber upright, and a powerful, blazing saber chi shot straight up into the sky, then he slashed down directly. It was as if a mountain of sabers descended, endless saber chi permeated the void realm, engulfing everything within a 300-meter radius. On the trees, in the pond, under the flowers, one blood flower after another bloomed, adding a touch of desolate charm to the air. "It really is you." Suzaku's eyes widened, finally confirming Lu Changsheng's identity. He was the Saber Dao Great Grand Master who had achieved a breakthrough by the Kangjiang River yesterday evening. Originally, the sky was too dark yesterday, and many Jianggu experts watching the spectacle did not clearly see Lu Changsheng's appearance, only knowing that he looked very young. But with Lu Changsheng's saber chi sweeping a 300-meter radius, Suzaku could finally confirm that the person was Lu Changsheng. A 17-year-old Great Grand Master, does such a thing truly exist? Suzaku murmured to herself. Even though Lu Changsheng stood right in front of her, linking it with the information about Lu Changsheng, Suzaku still found it hard to believe. The youngest Grand Master in Zhao's history was already over 30 years old. Don't let Suzaku's youthful appearance fool you. Like a woman in her early 20s, in reality, she had taken a beauty-preserving pill years ago, and her true age was already over 40. Even with her talent, and at such an age, she still couldn't see any hope of breaking through to Great Grand Master. "I've dealt with a few pesky bugs hidden in the shadows, Suzaku, you don't mind, do you?" Lu Changsheng sheathed his long saber, looked at Suzaku Honored One, and said with a smile. "I don't mind, but Lu Lang, I'm afraid you're in big trouble." Suzaku regained her composure and sighed. These were all Qinglong's confidants, even I had to turn a blind eye to them. Now that you've killed them all, with Qinglong's protective nature, he will surely be endlessly hostile towards Lu Lang. Of course, Qinglong's strength is at most comparable to death-seeking divine sword Lu Tiei, but if he were to ask the cult master to order his 4 honored ones to besiege you, I'm afraid Lu Lang wouldn't fare well. Even if you defeat his 4 honored ones, if you provoke the cult master to personally act, even a Da Luo immortal would find it hard to save you. 49. Subjugating Suzaku, cold and ruthless actions. The Suzaku Honored One's words and demeanor were full of concern for Lu Changsheng, making anyone who saw it think she was a rare and virtuous helper. Is that so? Then does the vermilion bird have a solution? Lu Changsheng asked with a smile. Because he knew that the Suzaku Honored One was about to reveal her true intentions. There is naturally a solution. As long as Lu Lang is willing to join my holy sect, his status will only be below that of the demon sect leader, and this grievance will naturally vanish into thin air. Moreover, my holy sect's demon sect leader's strength is secretly the greatest in Zhao, and he has gone very far on the path of the Great Grand Master. With his guidance, I believe it will be of great benefit to Lu Lang's martial Dao progress. The Suzaku Honored One finally spoke her purpose for this trip in a highly tempting voice. No, I have a better way. Lu Changsheng smiled and said, instead of me joining the demon sect, how about the vermilion bird pledges allegiance to me? If you and I join forces, we will surely achieve a great undertaking. You. The vermilion bird was uncharacteristically angry. Her jade-like face was filled with killing intent as she said, the demon sect leader has given me the grace of rebirth. Without him, I would have frozen or starved to death. Even if I die by your blade, I will never betray the demon sect leader. To you, he is indeed a great benefactor, but are his intentions truly that simple? Lu Changsheng smiled mysteriously. You all think the demon sect leader has given you the grace of rebirth, but in reality, he only treats you as jehu worms. And you, the 4 honored ones, are the 4 jehu kings he cultivates. According to your excellency, wouldn't everything the demon sect leader has painstakingly done be self-sacrificing for others? The Suzaku Honored One laughed in extreme anger, no longer even calling him Lu Lang. Naturally not. Lu Changsheng shook his head and said, Shi Jian cultivates a profound cultivation technique. If he wants to achieve major achievement, he will definitely absorb the true qi and protective aura from your four honored ones, and the absorption method is even blood sacrifice, so your situation is actually extremely dangerous. Although the story is tempting, how can you prove what you said is true? Even a 3-year-old child knows that such secrets will never be leaked. The vermilion bird's face still seemed unconvinced, but her heart trembled. Recalling the internal competition mechanism of the demon sect and the demon sect leader's occasional gaze as if looking at food, she believed it about 50 to 60% in her heart. Evidence. Lu Chengsheng smiled slightly. Then, a fiery red vermilion bird imprint appeared between his eyebrows. A large amount of crimson vermilion bird protective aura surged out, coiling around Lu Chengsheng's entire body. The stone slabs beneath his feet continuously cracked, spreading outwards like a spiderweb. This is vermilion bird true protective aura. The Suzaku honored one took a step back, a look of horror appearing in her beautiful eyes. Vermilion bird true protective aura is a unique skill that can only be used after cultivating the vermilion bird true art to the 12th level, after the protective aura has reached major achievement. Only the Suzaku honored one herself in the entire vermilion bird hall had reached this realm. From where did Lu Chengsheng learn it? However, what shocked the Suzaku honored one even more was yet to come. The vermilion bird true protective aura around Lu Chengsheng's body continued to surge out, and soon, towering flames enveloped him. He was like a brilliant fiery sun, illuminating all directions and destroying all things. This is the vermilion bird heavenly protective aura of heavenly human transformation. The Suzaku honored one exclaimed, her eyes inexplicably moist. Heavenly protective aura is formed when protective aura passes through corresponding chi orifices and combines with the power of heaven and earth. It is much stronger than a Grandmaster's protective aura. The two are incomparable. If forced to compare, it would be like the difference between a wooden knife and a steel knife. The Suzaku honored one originally thought that Grandmaster was the limit of the vermilion bird true art, but Lu Chengsheng showed her the subsequent realm. Shi Jian has always lied to you, saying that the 4 volumes of the true art only have 12 levels, but the truly complete true art has 15 levels. As long as you pledge allegiance to me and sincerely work for me, in half a year, I can bestow the complete cultivation technique upon you. Lu Chengsheng, like a god of fire descended, looked at the vermilion bird as if a deity looked at an ant. An ant has no right to refuse a deity. If it does, it will pay with its life. Vermilion bird greets master. The Suzaku honored one directly knelt on one knee before Lu Chengsheng. With her aptitude, if she had the complete cultivation technique, she would have already broken through to Great Grandmaster. Not to mention whether Shi Jian treated her as a cauldron or a sacrifice, just this act of obstructing her Tao was enough to make her turn against him. Very good, I need to leave something in your body. Do not resist. Lu Chengsheng waved his hand, and the flames on his body slowly dissipated. And in just a few breaths, a 30-meter radius had become scorched earth. Even the pond under the stone bridge boiled, and countless dead fish floated on the surface with their bellies up, emitting a meaty aroma. This was only the effect caused by the temperature accompanying the vermilion bird heavenly protective aura. If various combination techniques were used in combat, the power would be even more unimaginable. Next, Lu Chengsheng placed his right palm on the vermilion bird's forehead. Strands of vermilion bird heavenly protective aura poured in, forming a complex imprint between the vermilion bird's eyebrows. This was a special seal imprint that Lu Chengsheng created by utilizing the principle of the life and death seal imprint and combining it with the characteristics of the vermilion bird heavenly protective aura. It could be called an improved version of the life and death seal imprint. The difference from the life and death seal imprint is that when the life and death seal imprint acts up, it causes unbearable itching and pain, occurring once a year. However, this improved version directly explodes in the implanted person's skull when it acts up, and due to the violent nature of the vermilion bird heavenly protective aura, it acts up every 3 months. The only advantage is that it can control martial artists above an 8, even grandmasters can be controlled. As for whether it can control great grandmasters, Lu Chengsheng has not yet tried, so it is unknown. Feeling the destructive power between her eyebrows, the Suzaku honored one's expression became even more submissive. She lowered her head and said, "Is there anything this concubine can do to help master?" Lu Chengsheng withdrew his palm and said indifferently, "There are 2 things I need you to do. First, continue to infiltrate the demon sect and constantly monitor the demon sect's movements for me. Second, use the demon sect's intelligence network to quickly compile a list of all major and minor forces in Sanhei City for me. Yes, the vermilion bird quickly agreed, and at the same time, she breathed a sigh of relief. If she were asked to immediately betray the demon sect, she would still bear immense psychological pressure. After all, the demon sect leader's prestige had long been deeply ingrained in the bones of every high-ranking demon sect member over the years. For her, continuing to infiltrate was undoubtedly the best outcome. Just as Lu Changsheng was subduing the Suzaku Honored One, Leng Wuking and Zhou Ming were also taking action. The two first arrived at the Dragon King Gang's branch. After a series of complicated announcements, they finally met the branch leader A3 Absolute Blade Huoqi. After the two sides met, Leng Wuking did not beat around the bush but directly spoke frankly and openly about his plan. Lu Changsheng not only robbed the Dragon King Gang's items at the Four Seas auction house but also killed the Dragon King Gang's seventh elder. This was equivalent to openly trampling the Dragon King Gang's dignity, and the conflict between the two sides was almost irreconcilable. The progress of the matter was exactly as Leng Wuking expected. After Huoqi heard his plan, he applauded and immediately expressed his full support. 50. Why did your majesty rebel? If Leng Wuking's plan to eliminate Lu Changsheng without shedding blood truly succeeded, it would not only allow Huoqi to atone for his past mistakes but also be a great achievement, for which the Dragon King would surely not be stingy with rewards. After discussing some details, Leng Wuking and Zhou Ming left with satisfaction. After seeing them off, Huoqi said to his confidant, Peng Bao, go and make arrangements. Remember, do not let a third person in the branch know about this plan. Huoqi trusted Peng Bao, his confidant, very much. He had saved Peng Bao's life years ago, and Peng Bao had been utterly devoted to him all these years, proving himself absolutely trustworthy. Yes, your subordinate will ensure that no mistakes occur in this matter. Peng Bao cupped his fists and left. Once outside the main hall, a complex expression appeared on his face. Although the branch master had saved his life, he was an informant deliberately placed by the demonic sect. The imperial court's desire to ally with Zhonggu forces to deal with Lu Changsheng was too important a matter for him not to report. My holy sect has no conflict of interest with Lu Changsheng. We might even kick him when he's down, which could be considered helping the branch master a bit. Peng Bao consoled himself. Soon, a secret letter was sent out. It must be said that the demonic sect's intelligence capabilities were indeed strong. In less than a quarter of an hour, this secret letter fell into the hands of Suzaku Honored One, and naturally, Lu Changsheng also became aware of it. These imperial court people act even more sinister and cunning than our holy sect. Suzaku Honored One was both shocked and enraged after reading the contents of the secret letter. If things unfolded according to the secret letter, Lu Changsheng would first have his reputation ruined, and then he would face pressure from the entire Zhao Zhonggu. She, Suzaku, was now Lu Changsheng's person. If Lu Changsheng were to fall into eternal damnation, how could she possibly fare well? Lu Changsheng stood with his hands behind his back, smiling calmly. The show has just begun. Who is the fish and who is the fisherman is yet to be known. A luxurious carriage traveled through the bustling streets. Inside the carriage, Zhou Ming, who was utterly impressed by Leng Wuking's eloquence, asked curiously, Lord Leng, where are we going next? To the Jiaolong Association. Leng Wuking was resting with his eyes closed. He did not open them, merely stating coldly. Jiaolong Association. Zhou Ming was startled. Sanhei City had four major local gangs: the Jiaolong Association, the Ma Association, the Smoky Rain Pavilion, and the Tianying Gate. Among them, the Jiaolong Association was recognized as the strongest, monopolizing all peer businesses in Sanhei City, and even having a partial involvement in river transport. One must know that river transport was the exclusive business of the Dragon King Gang. To snatch a piece of meat from the Dragon King Gang's hands, the strength of the Jiaolong Association was evident. For such a force, which had no previous grievances with Lu Changsheng, convincing them to act would likely not be an easy task. However, Zhou Ming suddenly recalled a certain rumor circulating among the public and cautiously asked, I heard that Zheng Haisheng, the leader of the Jiaolong Association, Little Dragon, is a sworn brother of Lord Leng. Is this true? Leng Wuking did not answer, which was taken as an affirmation. Zhou Ming's heart settled. It seemed things were stable again. The Ma Association managed the city's freight business and was deeply intertwined with the Jiaolong Association. As long as the Jiaolong Association agreed, the Ma Association would definitely agree. At that time, with the combined power of the Dragon King Gang's branch, the Jiaolong Association, and the Ma Association, plus the Zhou family cheering them on, the remaining two forces of the Smoky Rain Pavilion and the Tianying Geta would have no choice but to agree. And once the four major gangs had made their choice, did the dozens of other small and medium-sized forces still have the right to refuse? At that point, a large net would descend upon Lu Changsheng, overwhelming him. No matter how much brute strength he possessed, he would only become flustered and sink deeper and deeper. The corner of Zhou Ming's mouth curved into an arc, as if he could already see the scene of his old ancestors' revenge being exacted. "Two sirs, we have arrived at the Jiaolong Association's main hall." The coachman's reminding voice came. As soon as they got out of the carriage, the two saw that the gate of the Jiaolong Association was damaged, and there wasn't even a gatekeeper at the entrance. The two exchanged glances and walked inside, only to see bloodstains on the ground, with many disciples numbly cleaning up the blood. "What happened here? Where is your gang leader?" Leng Wuking reached out and grabbed a passing disciple, demanding. The person was expressionless, raised a hand to point in a direction, then said nothing, turned, and left. "What's wrong with the Jiaolong Association? Could it be that enemies came knocking?" Zhou Ming asked, puzzled. "I'm afraid it's not that simple." Leng Wuking's brows were tightly furrowed as he quickly walked further inside. But as soon as he turned past the third door, his body suddenly froze in place. His perpetually cold and unchanging face actually showed a look of shock, which then transformed into sadness. This is. Zhou Ming curiously peeked his head in, and was so startled that his tongue tied. Behind the door, a burly corpse lay in a pool of blood. His face was indeed Zheng Haisheng, the leader of the Jiaolong Association, Little Dragon. This martial forest overlord, the most powerful in Sanhe City, now lay on his back on the ground, his brow cracked open, his eyes wide, as if he had seen something extremely terrifying before his death. "Brother Zheng, I never thought that our next meeting would be a farewell to this world." Leng Wuking let out a rare sigh and approached Zheng Haisheng's corpse. Inspecting a corpse was a detective's forte, let alone a detective like Leng Wuking. Because people lie, but corpses do not. A single corpse could reveal many things. After an inspection, apart from a wound on his brow, Leng Wuking found no other injuries on Zheng Haisheng's body. A powerful Grandmaster Peak expert was actually killed with a single move. Leng Wuking then had to carefully examine the crack on Zheng Haisheng's brow, and then gasped, "This blade seems to be from the Godly Blade sect, but its lethality is 10 times greater than that of the Godly Blade ancestor." The Godly Blade ancestor had engaged in combat many times, and the Six Doors had long since understood the intricacies of his blade techniques. But even the most lethal blade strike unleashed by the Godly Blade ancestor seemed unworthy of comparison to this blade. Leng Wuking felt deeply absurd and incredulous, but the facts were before his eyes, and he had no choice but to believe them. He initially suspected Lu Changsheng, but Lu Changsheng had only just broken through to Great Grandmaster yesterday, making it impossible for him to possess such a realm of blade technique. But if it wasn't him, then who could it be? Leng Wuking, the detective, found his mind momentarily muddled. Just then, several disciples with cold faces walked in, seemingly wanting to take Zheng Haisheng's corpse away. Leng Wuking noticed that these disciples were of low strength, not even having cultivated inner qi, so he frowned and said, "Is the Jiaolong Association so devoid of people? To actually send low-level disciples like you to collect the gang leader's body?" Upon hearing this, several disciples were slightly angered, and one of them said disdainfully, "For a traitor like him, it's already good enough to get a burial." Traitor. Zhou Ming found it absurd. The dignified leader of the Jiaolong Association, becoming a traitor to the Jiaolong Association. This was like saying an emperor would rebel. Leng Wuking also found it amusing. With a wave of his hand, a burst of force erupted, sending them out. 51. Returning the favor. Soon after, a middle-aged man with a pale, beardless face arrived with the high-ranking members of the Jiaolong Association. "A Hall Master, Ida S. him." The few people who had just been driven away pointed at Leng Wuking and said hatefully, "Who do I have here? It turns out to be Detective Leng and Zhou family head. I apologize for not coming out to greet you sooner, please forgive me, eh?" The pale-faced, beardless middle-aged man cupped his hands and bowed. "A Hall Master, when did Brother Qi get demoted from Jiaolong Association Vice Leader to Hall Master? The leader is dead, Arena Tu getting promoted." A Leng Wuking sneered. Qi Tianning was not angry, instead, He sighed and said, from now on, there will be no more Jiaolong Association. There will only be Martial Alliance Yi Division. And I am naturally the Hall Master, not the leader. A Martial Alliance. Leng Wuking was startled and quickly said, could it be that Brother Zheng was killed by someone from the Martial Alliance? That's right. Qi Tianing's face became serious, and he spoke righteously. Zheng Haisheng spoke disrespectfully to the Alliance Master and defied his superiors. He deserved to die. Then who exactly is this Martial Alliance Master? Leng Wuking continued to press. Upon hearing this, Qi Tianing's face actually showed a hint of fear, and then he said with a wry smile, I don't know. At that time, I did not even have the courage to look up at him. I only knew his voice was very young. You Zhou Ming was speechless. Qi Tianing's nickname was Iron Gallant Shakes the Eight Directions, but he never expected that one day his own gall would be shattered by someone else. Seeing that he could not get any more useful information, Leng Wuking did not linger. He immediately took Zhou Ming and left the Jiaolong Association, or what could now be called the Martial Alliance Yi Division. Because he had more important things to do. Let us go to the Ma Association. After getting into the carriage, Leng Wuking told the coachman to drive at full speed. The carriage sped recklessly through the streets, drawing many curses. But Leng Wuking could not care less about these things. His innate spiritual perception vaguely told him that the Martial Alliance Mystera's next move would definitely be against the Ma Association. This kind of spiritual perception was his talent and reliance as a detective Leng, and he would never doubt it. Now, he was racing against time. When they arrived at the Ma Association, everything was calm. The Ma Association's gate was not damaged, and there were no bloodstains on the ground. It seems I am not too late. Leng Wuking breathed a sigh of relief. Arriving at the gate, he still asked with unease, do you know about the Martial Alliance? What Martial Alliance? The few gate guards felt bewildered. If it weren't for the fact that the two people in front of them were well dressed and their temples bulged high, they would have chased them away long ago. I am Zhou Ming, the Zhou family head. My friend and I would like to meet your leader, Pang Lei. Please inform him. Zhou Ming stepped forward and cupped his hands. He had some acquaintance with Pang Lei and believed the other party would not avoid seeing him. Upon hearing Zhou Ming introduce himself, the gate guards immediately changed to a fawning expression and said, so Ida's Zhou family head. Ida's just that today the leader is at leisure at home and has not come to the association. Not good. Leng Wuking's expression changed, and he pulled Zhou Ming into the carriage. Zhou Ming felt baffled. Although Detective Leng was worried about the Ma Association letter's safety, was he so sure that the Martial Alliance Mystera's next target would definitely be him? What if it was someone else? However, before the carriage even reached the Pang family garden, they saw a large fire from afar, with flames soaring into the sky, seemingly wanting to devour everything. That direction Leng Wuking's face darkened. When the carriage arrived at the Pang family garden, they only saw a continuous stretch of ruins. How did this fire extinguish so quickly? Zhou Ming was somewhat startled and uncertain. It had only been about 2 incense sticks worth of time from when they saw the firelight until they arrived here, right? The towering flames had actually extinguished. Moreover, this fire, coincidentally, only burned the Pang family garden. The surrounding houses, not even a single piece of wood, were burned. This fire is not an ordinary flame. Leng Wuking said coldly, this is a heavenly fire caused by a great Grand Master who cultivates fire attribute internal skill, drawing upon the power of heaven and earth. Zhou Ming was shocked and hesitated, a great Grand Master who cultivates fire attribute internal skill. Their arena TNE in Zhao Zhonggu. Could they be from outside the border, or Among the great Grand Masters in Zhao Zhonggu, there were only a few, and none of them cultivated fire attribute internal skill. However, it was said that the imperial family seemed to have Somaya. But that also did not make sense. Why would the imperial family abduct a martial alliance and hide it from Leng Wuking, this 6 doors detective Leng? Actually, there is one more persona. A young Mana-s figure appeared in Leng Wuking's mind. He had used fire attribute True Qi in Yuyang City, but that was only True Qi after all, still 100,000 li away from a great Grand Master. This is getting more and more interesting. Leng Wuking walked into the ruins, wanting to find more evidence. But in the end, besides hundreds of charred corpses, he found nothing. Pang Leia's corpse was also among them. Pang Lei, the black sand palm, his hand was truly black now. Only it was the black of char, not the black of black sand. Your subordinate greets Detective Leng. At this moment, the 6 doors constables also rushed over. Seal off the scene. Do not let anyone approach. Leng Wuking gave the order. There might be more clues inside, but he did not have much time for a more detailed search now. Let us go back to the Ma Association. Since the other party killed Pang Lei, the next step must be to subdue the Ma Association. I want to see who is truly behind this martial alliance. Leng Wuking's expression was extremely cold. He had originally intended to join forces with various factions to deal with Liu Changsheng, but then a martial alliance suddenly appeared to disrupt his plans. Naturally, his mood was not good. When Leng Wuking and Zhou Ming arrived at the Ma Association again, it was still those few gate guards. Everything seemed unchanged, but Leng Wuking sniffed a faint hint of blood in the air, which had not been there before. Friends, we would like to meet the Ma Association vice leader. Zhou Ming stepped forward and cupped his hands. Unexpectedly, the few people who had been fawning over him before suddenly stiffened their faces, as if they had been insulted, and cursed. What Ma Association or Cow Association? Open your dog eyes and see, this is Martial Alliance Bing Division. Even a few gatekeepers dared to insult him, making Zhou Ming's face turn green and then pale with anger. He pointed at the plaque above their heads and stomped his foot. Does not it say Ma Association in big characters here? Are you implying I cannot read? Excuse me. At this moment, 2 young strong men came out carrying a new plaque. The bright red paint on it was still wet, but it replaced the old plaque. Zhou Ming looked up again. It had indeed become the 5 large characters. Martial Alliance Bing Division. This immediately made him grit his teeth in anger. They did not bring it out earlier or later, but only at this moment. Was not this deliberately trying to embarrass him? And this coincidental timing also made Leng Wuking seem to sense someone's mischievous humor. On a 4-story high restaurant across the street, Suzaku Honored One was massaging the shoulders of a white-robed young master sitting by the window. Seeing Zhou Ming's exasperated look from afar, she could not help but chuckle and said, master, is not this a bit too much bullying? Bullying. This is just the beginning, merely an appetizer. A bigger surprise awaits them later. Liu Changsheng smiled slightly. Since Leng Wuking and the Zhou family wanted to weave a large net for him, he naturally had to return the favor in kind. 52. The Tragedy at the Cliff of Death. In the simulator, even if Liu Changsheng became a great Grand Master of the Blade Dao, he was still tormented by the insidious schemes of Leng Wuking and those behind him. If he didn't let them also taste the flavor of despair, Liu Changsheng felt he definitely wouldn't be able to eat or sleep well. Moreover, in this process, he could also establish his own power, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Lord Leng, where are we going next? Smoky Rain Pavilion or Tianying, Sky Eagle Gate? The continuous setbacks had made Zhou Ming a bit dejected, but with Leng Wuking's presence, he hadn't completely lost confidence. After all, Leng Wuking was backed by the imperial court, which had several great Grand Masters. Although the martial alliance was strange and mysterious, in his heart, it was still far inferior to the imperial court. No, we're going to Extinction Cliff. Leng Wuking said coldly. Extinction Cliff? I heard that place is full of lunatics. Zhou Ming's heart pounded, not understanding why Leng Wuking was abandoning their well-made plan. Seemingly seeing Zhou Ming's confusion, Leng Wuking said, precisely because they are a bunch of lunatics, we must go even more. Don't forget, our primary target is always Liu Changsheng. All Zhonggu forces in Qingzhou might side with the martial alliance, but that group of lunatics absolutely will not. Liu Changsheng killed Tianzhu, Heavenly Termination, Shengren, revered person, and formed a blood feud with them. They are also the force we are most confident in winning over. You're also a lunatic, Zhou Ming muttered to himself. Although he didn't want to cooperate with a group of notorious lunatics, Zhou Ming had to admit that they had no better choice now. After making the decision, the 2 bought 2 good horses nearby and rode straight for Extinction Cliff. Extinction Cliff was 180 li north of Sanhei City. At the speed of a fast horse, it would only take an hour and a half to arrive. But under their hard whipping, they managed to reach Extinction Cliff in just 1 hour. Discarding the 2 fast horses that were twitching on the ground and foaming at the mouth, the 2 arrived in front of a manor gate. "There's a smell of blood." Leng Wuking sniffed with his nose, his expression suddenly changing. Zhou Ming shrugged, saying indifferently, "The people of Extinction Cliff are a bunch of lunatics who often conduct various experiments with living creatures. It's normal to have the smell of blood. It's not like the Martial Alliance people are here again, right? They had rushed here without stopping, and Zhou Ming didn't think the Martial Alliance could move faster than them. Moreover, not only were everyone at Extinction Cliff top-notch experts, but besides Tianju, Heavenly Termination, Shengrant Revered Person, there were 3 other formidable Grandmasters. They were Serpent Lord Zhao Wenkai, Evil Blade Shu Xian, and Fast Sword Chong Ming. Even a great Grandmaster would have to put in some effort to take down these 3. It was peaceful now, so had the Martial Alliance people killed them all in such a short time? Zhou Ming pushed open the manor gate, but then immediately wished he could slap himself twice. Inside the gate, blood flowed, and there were mutilated corpses everywhere. As far as the eye could see, one corpse after another had their eyes wide open in unwillingness, filled with bewilderment and fear, as if questioning the heavens, why was this happening? This was simply like arriving in hell. Zhou Ming covered his mouth, almost throwing up. Even though he had been the Zhou family patriarch for many years, he had never seen such a scene. The blood is warm, these people just died recently, and from the wounds, they were all killed with a single strike. The blade technique is from the same source as the one that killed the young Zhaolong Zheng Haisheng. Leng Wuking walked into the manor expressionlessly, and in just a few breaths, he had deduced many things. Continuing further inside, the scene became even more terrifying. Serpent Lord Zhao Wenkai's head had been cut off with a single blade and placed on a table. Evil Blade Shu Xian's blade was broken into several pieces, just like his body. Fast Sword Chong Ming's sword, however, was not broken, it was simply stuck in his own skull. These 3 were all notorious and ruthless murderers in their early years. Later, they fled to Extinction Cliff and banded together with Tianju, Heavenly Termination, Shengrant Revered Person, to form this infamous Extinction Cliff, which even the Qingzhou government could only turn a blind eye to. They had thought that evil would last for 1,000 years, but unexpectedly, they all met a tragic end today. Could there truly be karma and reincarnation in this world, with retribution being swift? Zhou Ming thought of the unethical things he had done and fell silent for a moment. We were still a step too late. Leng Wuking shook his head. Zhou Ming asked in confusion, isn't the Martial Alliance's goal to subdue Zhonggu forces? Why did they slaughter everyone at Extinction Cliff? Could it be that they failed to subdue them and became enraged? Perhaps we fell into some kind of thought trap from the very beginning. Leng Wuking rarely sighed, saying, perhaps we too were also targets of the Martial Alliance long ago. Zhou Ming, having been the patriarch for many years, possessed a calm demeanor, but at this moment, he was so frightened that he took a few steps back, his voice trembling as he said, we have no grievances with the Martial Alliance. To deal with us too, the Martial Alliance master wouldn't need to go to such great lengths, would he? Perhaps it's not going to great lengths, but rather a cat playing with a mouse. Leng Wuking shook his head slightly, a strong sense of frustration arising in his heart. This feeling, for a detective Leng of his high position and authority, was clearly extremely unbelievable. Let's go back to the Dragon King Gang sub-branch. These are all just second-rate forces, and the Dragon King Gang has a great Grandmaster in charge. Even if the Martial Alliance is arrogant, they definitely wouldn't dare to attack its sub-branch in a short time, Leng Wuking said. Zhou Ming nodded in agreement. There was a world of difference between a great Grandmaster and a Grandmaster. Even if the Martial Alliance had more than one great Grandmaster, they certainly wouldn't easily offend another great Grandmaster to death without making complete preparations. The only problem now was that their 2 good horses had been ridden to exhaustion and could no longer be ridden. The 2 could only use their qinggong to rush back. This 180-li journey exhausted Zhou Ming. If he had known, he would have been gentler earlier and not ridden so fiercely. Upon entering the city and arriving at the Dragon King Gang sub-branch, they heard a deafening roar of battle from afar. The 2 exchanged glances, a sense of foreboding rising in their hearts. As they drew closer, they saw a dense crowd of gang members in various colored clothes, jointly slaughtering the Dragon King Gang disciples. Judging by their attire, they were none other than the 4 major gangs, Zhaolong Association, Ma Association, Smoky Rain Pavilion, and Tianying Sky Eagle Gate. Are these people crazy? Zhou Ming murmured. If they really destroyed the sub-branch, these 4 major gangs would be in an endless, irreconcilable conflict with the Dragon King gang. 6 doors at work, everyone stop. Leng Wuking took out a purple token unique to him, attempting to use his Imperial Court identity to suppress them. When did the Imperial Court's lackeys start meddling in Jianggu affairs? A slender young man in brocade robes with eyes as sharp as an eagle's, known as the Little Eagle King, walked over with a few attendants. Who are you? Leng Wuking frowned. You don't even recognize our Tianying, Sky Eagle Gate's Little Eagle King, and you claim to be from 6 doors. The attendants behind the eagle-eyed young man burst into laughter. Leng Wuking was about to get angry when he saw the Little Eagle King's expression darken first. How many times have I told you? From now on, there is no Tianying, Sky Eagle Gate, only the Martial Alliance's Dingrang Hall. Slap yourselves. 53. The Might of the Martial Alliance. The Dragon King's Life and Death Statement. Yes, Master. The faces of the attendants changed, and they began slapping themselves, quickly swelling their faces into pig heads. Indeed, even Tianying, Sky Eagle Gate has fallen. Leng Wuking sighed softly in his heart. At this moment, Zhou Ming whispered in his ear, this is Yin Kong, the son of Yin Lai, the Eagle King of Tianying, Sky Eagle Gate. Because he practices the Tianying, Sky Eagle Claw the best among the younger generation, he is also known as the Little Eagle King. Detective Leng, if you wish to interfere with the Dragon King gang, I am afraid it might be against the rules. Chi Tianying, the Martial Alliance Yi Division Hall Master, also walked over. He was accompanied by a short, stout man. Leng Wuking recognized this person. He was Cao Yun, the vice-gang leader of the Ma Association. Now, perhaps he should be called the Martial Alliance Bing Division Hall Master. I am currently investigating a major case, which is closely related to this Dragon King gang branch. I ask for your cooperation. To Zhou Ming's surprise, Leng Wuking, this Detective Leng, uncharacteristically yielded. In Zhou Ming's view, Leng Wuking was absolutely not afraid of the leaders of a few second-rate forces. The only thing that made him wary was probably the Martial Alliance master behind these people. Giggle, giggle A series of bell-like laughter came. Zhou Ming turned his head to look and saw a woman with a graceful and exquisite figure and a pair of eyes beautiful enough to captivate souls, twisting her waist as she walked over. Why only mention her figure and eyes? Because the woman's head was completely covered by several layers of white gauze, and even her hands wore a pair of white gloves. Apart from her eyes, not a single inch of skin was exposed. Ida's Hera. Zhou Ming was stunned. He knew this woman. She was the Smoky Rain Pavilion Mystera, the soul-hooking jade maiden, Xiao Shisan Niang. This woman was very mysterious. No one had ever seen her true face except for the male companions she kept. As the behind-the-scenes controller of the Smoky Rain Pavilion, and since the Smoky Rain Pavilion controlled 90% of Sanhei City's brothels, Xiao Shisan Niang was naturally fantasized by everyone as an peerless beautiful woman. And the words of her male companions also confirmed this, all saying that she was a fairy descended from heaven, with a face beautiful enough to drive all men crazy. Unfortunately, such a peerless beauty could only benefit those few male companions, causing countless high-ranking officials and nobles in Sanhei City to beat their chests in frustration. Zhou Ming had also fantasized about spending a night with Xiao Shisan Niang, but unfortunately, he could never find the opportunity. This was the greatest regret of his life. Ida's pity Detective Leng has already arrived late. Xiao Shisan Niang smiled charmingly, throwing something hidden behind her onto the ground, revealing a bloody head with wide-open eyes filled with unwillingness and resentment. Huo Kia. Leng Wuking pressed his hand on the saber hilt, his knuckles turning white. Zhou Ming quietly retreated a few steps, fearing being caught in the crossfire. Are you Martial Alliance acting so recklessly? Arena tu afraid of the Dragon King Gang's insane retaliation? Leng Wuking's expression grew colder, and a murderous chi permeated the air. Everyone else also tensed up. Only the youngest, Little Eagle King Yin Kong, said indifferently, our Martial Alliance master said that if the Dragon King dares to show his head, he will turn him into a dead dragon. Zhou Ming was startled. That was the Dragon King. Between great Grand Masters, it was easy to win, but extremely difficult to completely kill the opponent. In the past 30 to 40 years, there had been no precedent of a great Grand Master being killed, only cases of natural death due to old age. Moreover, the Dragon King Shangding Tian was not a weakling among great Grand Masters. Are you sure your martial alliance master isn't just tricking young people like you? Leng Wuking took a deep breath, and in the end, still did not make a move. In reality, from beginning to end, he never intended to truly act, he only wanted to use pressure to gather more information. Offending a force that seemingly possessed two great grandmasters rashly, unless he had lost his mind. Zhou Ming was dismissive of Yin Konga's words, but Leng Wuking believed them implicitly. Detectives all possessed the ability to infer much from little. From the saber chi he observed, the martial alliance's saber Dao Great Grandmaster's strength far surpassed Godly Blade Ancestor, and was likely even superior to the demonic cult master. It was not surprising that he possessed the strength to kill other great grandmasters. I wonder if the martial alliance master is this person. Somehow, the figure of a white-clothed youth suddenly appeared in Leng Wuking's mind, but he then vigorously shook it off. It could not be him. The martial alliance's saber Dao Great Grandmaster's saber technique realm had reached at least the 4th level, the saber force realm. And how old was Lu Changsheng? How could he possibly have such a saber technique realm? Let's go. Leng Wuking said coldly and turned to leave. At this time, the battle was nearing its end, and the destruction of the Dragon King Genga's Sanhei City branch was a foregone conclusion. Staying any longer would just make them look like monkeys. Zhou Ming also quickly followed, but before leaving, he reluctantly glanced at Xiao Shisanniang, and in a daze, he even saw Xiao Shisanniang wink at him. She has feelings for me. Zhou Ming's heart swelled with joy. All the unpleasantness he had encountered today instantly vanished, and in his mind, there were only those captivating eyes. Just as Leng Wuking and Zhou Ming returned to the Zhou family, deciding to plan for the long term, a storm suddenly swept across the entire Zhaojianggu. Martial Alliance. This force, which rose like a comet, swept across Qingzhou in a very short time, stirring up a bloody storm. This martial alliance seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. No one knew its origin, and no one even knew the identity of its martial alliance master. They only knew that the 4 major second-rate gangs and dozens of large and small Jianggu forces in Sanhei City almost all joined the martial alliance within a day, and its roots were still spreading throughout Qingzhou, with the intention of encompassing the entire Qingzhou Jianggu. The martial alliance was extremely mysterious, and its actions were utterly reckless, domineering, and arrogant to the extreme. The first thing it did was destroy Extinction Cliff, on the grounds that Extinction Cliff was unwilling to submit to the martial alliance. Extinction Cliff was already infamous, and its destruction made countless Jianggu people applaud. It was not until the martial alliance did another major thing that it caused a huge uproar in the Jianggu. That was destroying the Dragon King Genga's largest branch in Qingzhou. Not only that, the martial alliance also issued a harsh warning. From now on, the water transport in Qingzhou would be managed by the martial alliance, and the Dragon King gang was not allowed to interfere in the slightest. At this point, the entire Jianggu was in an uproar. Although Jianggu feuds were inevitable, and a considerable number of gangs were destroyed every year, no one had ever dared to offend a first-rate force with a great grandmaster stationed there to the death. A few days ago, a grandmaster who robbed the Four Seas auction house appeared, which was already considered bold enough. Unexpectedly, this martial alliance was even more arrogant, not only slaughtering thousands of Dragon King gang disciples but also taking on a challenging stance. Its actions were utterly arrogant and domineering. It was said that when the Dragon King Shangdingtian received this news, he beat a favored concubine to death that night and smashed more than a dozen antiques. Just as the Jianggu people were speculating on how the Dragon King gang would respond, the next day, a death challenge was sent from the Dragon King gang headquarters to the martial alliance. The Dragon King Shangdingtian invited the martial alliance master to a life-and-death battle at Tianshui Lake 1 month later, to the death. The martial alliance did not disappoint everyone and quickly accepted the challenge. The entire Jianggu instantly boiled over. 54. The big mistake at Jianshan Mountain. Dragon King Shangdingtian, in terms of both reputation and strength, could rank among the top 3 in Zhao. On the other side was the martial alliance master, whose reputation was not prominent, and who had never been seen making a move. Was this a battle between dragons and tigers, or a one-sided crush? Many Jianggu individuals were deeply interested in this, and for a time, restaurants and tea houses were all discussing this topic. And around Tianshui Lake in Zhangzhou, undercurrents surged, with countless forces, both overt and covert, arriving to witness the rare spectacle of 2 grandmasters fighting to the death, a sight not seen in the Jianggu for decades. Sanhei City, Governor's Mansion. In the governor's mansion's pear garden, spring was in full bloom. The plants and flowers here were carefully selected exotic species, evergreen all year round. This was originally Governor Zhao Linghai's favorite place, but now he had no choice but to vacate it for a person of extremely noble status. By the pond, in the small pavilion, a noble young man in brocade robes and jade belt crushed the teacup in his hand. To think, a martial alliance actually ruined my meticulously planned scheme. The young man's eyes were filled with evil qi, and his expression was cold. Leng Wuking, who had been respectfully standing by, immediately knelt on one knee and clasped his fists, saying, "It is all due to my incompetence, please punish your highness." That's right, this young man was indeed Zhao's third prince, Zhao Tai, also the Prince of Huai'an, personally enfeoffed by the current emperor. Upon hearing this, much of the anger on Zhao Tai's face dissipated, and he personally helped Leng Wuking up. Leng Wuking was the only one of the Six Doors' four great detectives who had secretly pledged allegiance to him, so he naturally wouldn't be foolish enough to punish him. The Martial Alliance has a Grand Master. Your inability is understandable and excusable, but I wonder if Detective Leng can ascertain the identity of the Grand Master behind the Martial Alliance. Zhao Tai first offered comfort, then showed a hint of eagerness. That day, when he saw Lu Chengsheng display his divine might in private room 1 of the Four Seas auction house, he had the intention of recruiting him. Who knew that before he could act, Lu Chengsheng broke through to become a Grand Master? Now he had no choice but to change his plan, deciding to first orchestrate a universally condemned spectacle to wear down the arrogance of this young Grand Master Lu Chengsheng, and then, at a critical moment, he would step in to offer timely help, thereby bringing Lu Chengsheng under his command. Zhao Tai was confident in this, as he had recruited Leng Wuking in the same way. However, the emergence of the Martial Alliance disrupted his plan. According to Leng Wuking, the Martial Alliance was suspected of having 2 Grand Masters, one Dao of Blade Grand Master and one Grand Master who cultivated fire attribute cultivation technique. Such a force was undoubtedly more valuable than Lu Chengsheng. If there was an opportunity to recruit or cooperate, for Zhao Tai, his chances of contending for the throne would undoubtedly increase by several points. Unexpectedly, Leng Wuking shook his head bitterly upon hearing this. My innate spiritual perception tells me that if I continue to investigate, I will die. Zhao Tai was startled upon hearing this. He naturally understood Leng Wuking's innate spiritual perception, which was a talent that could predict blessings and misfortunes in advance. Leng Wuking's ability to escape death multiple times and become a detective was largely due to this talent. Since Leng Wuking had said so, Zhao Tai had to temporarily give up on investigating the Martial Alliance and refocus his attention on Lu Chengsheng. In any case, a month later, the Martial Alliance master would have a life and death duel with Dragon King Shangding Tian, and at that time, the identity of the person behind the Martial Alliance would naturally come to light. The Dragon King gang is currently overwhelmed with the Martial Alliance matter and temporarily has no time to deal with their grievances with Lu Chengsheng, but we can add fuel to the fire on Sword God Mountain's side. It would be best if they could issue a Zhonggu kill order for Lu Chengsheng. Zhao Tai said. There was actually no major grievance between Lu Chengsheng and Sword God Mountain. At most, he had beaten a few disciples, including the sect master's daughter Zhang Yuanying, and had snatched the millennial stone marrow that Sword God Mountain had bid on at the Four Seas auction house. With Lu Chengsheng's strength, these were not enough for Sword God Mountain to issue a Zhonggu kill order against him. However, Zhao Tai had already bribed many Sword God Mountain elders, and as long as they fanned the flames and created momentum, it was very likely that Sword God Mountain would issue a Zhonggu kill order for Lu Chengsheng. Indeed, not long after, Sword God Mountain officially issued a Zhonggu kill order for Lu Chengsheng. This caused quite a stir in the Zhonggu. Since the Four Seas auction house incident, Lu Chengsheng had gained considerable fame in Zhao's Zhonggu. With his invincible strength at the Grand Master realm, even first-rate forces would have a headache dealing with him. Yet, unexpectedly, Sword God Mountain directly issued a Zhonggu kill order for him. Some were surprised, while others were naturally delighted. Especially those forces that Lu Chengsheng had offended, they wished they could beat drums and gongs to celebrate. There were also many affiliated forces of Sword God Mountain, cheering for their master, telling Lu Chengsheng to come out quickly and die. However, this ripple had only lasted for 3 days when Sword God Mountain suddenly revoked the Zhonggu kill order against Lu Chengsheng. They also announced that it was an internal elder who made a mistake, and that the document sent to Lu Chengsheng was originally a letter of thanks, thanking him for exposing the thousand-faced demon lord's disguise and reducing Sword God Mountain's losses. And that Zhonggu kill order was originally intended for the demonic Lord Qinglong Venerable, but due to the elder in charge of the matter being too old and having blurry vision, he confused the two names. Upon hearing this, countless Zhonggu heroes dropped their jaws in disbelief. Once a Zhonggu kill order is issued, it means fighting to the death. They could even get this wrong. Especially those affiliated forces who were cheering, they almost spat out a mouthful of old blood. You mother f***cker. I've been waving flags and shouting for a long time, and then you tell me it was a mistake, start over. This huge blunder instantly disgraced Sword God Mountain, making it a laughingstock in the Zhonggu. Bright Moon Restaurant, with 7 floors in total. It was the tallest building in Sanhei City and also the most luxurious restaurant in Sanhei City. It was originally the property of Deng Tong, the richest merchant in Qingzhou, but now it belonged to the Martial Alliance. The 7th floor of Bright Moon Restaurant, usually a gathering place for the top dignitaries of Sanhei City, had only a few guests today. No, to be precise, there was only one master. Lu Chengsheng was already tipsy, sprawled out on a chair. In front and behind him, there were 2 beautiful women each, massaging his shoulders and legs. These were the 4 most famous courtesans of Misty Rain Pavilion. They were known as the 4 Golden Flowers. And Vermilion Bird, dressed in light, alluring attire, continued to pour wine for Lu Chengsheng from the side, while laughing and saying, Sword God Mountain revoked the Zhonggu kill order against Master so quickly, it seems they must have known that Master broke through to Grand Master. As for Sword God Mountain saying it was a mistake, Vermilion Bird didn't believe it at all. The only possibility was that after Sword God Mountain learned that Lu Chengsheng was a Grand Master, they gritted their teeth and revoked the kill order. To hunt down a Grand Master? Even the imperial family wouldn't do something so absurd, let alone Sword God Mountain, which doesn't even rank among the top 3 of first-rate forces. Sword God Mountain is just cowardly. Floating Light Sword Master is just weak. Lu Chengsheng's face was flushed, and he was speaking drunkenly. It seemed that under the meticulous service of the 5 beauties, he was truly drunk. 55. On the self-cultivation of actors, Lu Chengsheng's terrifying strength. Vermilion Bird, you did well. Suddenly, a square-faced middle-aged man walked up the stairs, holding a long blade gleaming with blue light. A 17-year-old Grand Master, today he will die by our hands. A round ball of flesh crashed down from the top floor, bouncing a few times on the ground, scaring the 4 courtesans into shrieking and huddling into a corner. This is what they call, since ancient times, heroes have been unable to resist the allure of beauties. A middle-aged man dressed as a scholar jumped in through the window, saying with a smile. You are the Azure Dragon, Xuanwu Honored One, and White Tiger Venerable of the demonic sect. Lu Chengsheng shook his head, his mind seeming to clear a bit, then he slapped the table and angrily declared, you few jumping clowns who aren't even Grand Masters, dare to claim you'll take my life, Lu Chengsheng's life. Then he swayed and stood up, just about to make a move, when his expression suddenly stiffened, and he turned his head in shock, looking at Vermilion Bird, disbelievingly saying, what did you do to me? Why can't I use my protective aura anymore? Azure Dragon sneered, no need to guess, the wine you drank was poisoned by Vermilion Bird with Immortal Dissolving Powder. What? Despair appeared in Lu Chengsheng's eyes. Immortal Dissolving Powder, the #1 strange poison in Zhonggu. Back then, Badao Hupeng, who was known as the #1 blade user in the world, died after being poisoned by this. This poison has 2 effects. First, those poisoned by it will be unable to use any of their true chi and protective aura for 2 hours. Second, those poisoned by it will surely die within 3 days, even a great immortal cannot save them, hence the name, Immortal Dissolving Powder. I never thought I would end up with the same fate as Badao Hupeng. Lu Chengsheng lowered his head and gave a self-mocking smile, his face full of bitterness. The 3, Azure Dragon, watched all of this with interest, enjoying the despair of a genius Grand Master, which was also an amusing matter for them. Then Lu Chengsheng looked at Vermilion Bird again, a hint of pain flashing in his eyes. I trusted you so much, but I didn't expect you would still betray me. As he spoke, he seemed about to squeeze out a few tears, which left Vermilion Bird speechless, and she couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. Master, the prey has already fallen into the trap, how long do you plan to keep acting? Hearing this, Lu Chengsheng's expression straightened, he coughed, and mumbled, don't you know what an actor's self-cultivation is? I'm striving for perfection, understand? You're not poisoned. Azure Dragon was greatly shocked. They had personally seen Vermilion Bird put the immortal dissolving powder into the wine, and then personally seen Lu Changsheng drink it. Could it be that there was a hidden mechanism in the wine pot? If I weren't poisoned, how could I trick all of you out? Saying this, Lu Changsheng extended his middle finger. From the tip of his middle finger, black blood flowed out. Drip, drip, it was the sound of a heartbeat, no, it was the sound of blood dripping onto the floor. Such a subtle sound, yet it struck the chests of Azure Dragon, White Tiger Venerable, and Xuanwu Honored One like a heavy hammer. The number one strange poison in the world, after being drunk into the body, could actually be forced out. This truly challenged the limits of the three's understanding. This poison might be an insoluble poison for all martial artists on this continent, but it absolutely did not include Lu Changsheng. It had been over half a month since the martial alliance was established, and during this time, Lu Changsheng had already, through his own efforts, cultivated all four true arts of Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Xuanwu Honored One to the 15th realm. All 288 chi apertures recorded therein had been opened. In addition, Godly Blade Slash had also been cultivated to the perfection realm by Lu Changsheng. He also found the complete thick earth art from Jin country in the simulator, obtained Examen Piaoshui's cultivation technique a flying immortal sword scripturia from him, and cultivated all of them to perfection. At this moment, Lu Changsheng possessed 7 perfection grandmaster cultivation techniques, and the abundance of his true chi and protective aura made him the foremost person in history on this continent. And a mere immortal dissolving powder could not poison him in the simulation 10 days ago, let alone harm him in the slightest now. You can actually expel the poison from your body. White Tiger Venerable retreated rapidly as if he had seen a ghost. Such a person was no longer someone they could deal with. Even if the sect master came personally, he might not fare well. Seeing this, Lu Changsheng pouted, finding it a fuss. Even if he didn't expel the poison, at most he would just have diarrhea a few times. Thump, 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 thump. As soon as White Tiger had retreated 4 or 5 steps, his body froze in place, motionless, and then his body suddenly turned into a pile of shattered flesh, scattered all over the ground. Ah! The 4 golden flowers in the corner shrieked in fright again. However, Azure Dragon and Xuanwu Honored One had no time to pay attention to the screams. The two carefully surveyed their surroundings and quickly discovered that a faint golden net had, at some unknown point, spread throughout the surrounding void realm, trapping them like fish. This is the unique skill from the White Tiger True Art of Heaven and Earth Net. Azure Dragon and Xuanwu Honored One exchanged glances, utterly shocked. They had seen White Tiger use this technique countless times, but the Heaven and Earth Net in White Tiger's hands could only trap a Grandmaster for a period of time, and its activation caused a lot of commotion. Compared to what was here, it was undoubtedly like babbling. There's a way out underground. Without time to ponder why Lu Changsheng also knew this move, Azure Dragon, upon finding the floor unwoven, directly performed a divine dragon wagging tail, and plunged down. Downstairs, many diners were still eating. Seeing the floor above suddenly shatter and a blue figure fall, they all screamed and scattered. Azure Dragon, who had just escaped downstairs, hadn't even had time to rejoice when he heard a buzzing sound from the surrounding air. A large blue hand appeared out of thin air and grasped him, as if holding a loach. Unfortunately, he did not possess the ability of a loach to escape. The blue light hand squeezed hard, and Azure Dragon turned into a puddle of flesh in a miserable scream. Then, the blue light handprint dissipated, leaving only the startled diners throughout the building. Heaven and Earth Net from the White Tiger True Art, One Chi Great Grasp from the Azure Dragon True Art. Don't tell me you can even use Water Elemental Explosion from the Xuanwu True Art. The round Xuanwu Honored One had already given up the idea of escaping and stood rooted to the spot with a wry smile, yet his face also held a hint of hope, as if wanting to witness some miracle. Perhaps, the mysterious cultivation technique that the sect master spoke of, which allowed one to cultivate multiple internal skills, truly existed. Guess. Lu Changsheng smiled mysteriously, withdrew the Heaven and Earth Net, and slapped out a palm, like swatting a ball, sending Xuanwu Honored One flying out the window. A round ball suddenly flew through the air, causing many pedestrians on the street to stop and watch. Although it was a 7-story height, it was absolutely impossible to kill Xuanwu Honored One by falling. Just as he was wondering why Lu Changsheng would be so kind as to let him go, his body suddenly expanded rapidly, like an inflated balloon. Wonderful, Water Elemental Explosion can actually be used this way, allowing one to feel no pain before death. A strange look of satisfaction actually appeared on Xuanwu Hanheng-one's face, as if dying by his own famous unique skill was an honor. Then, his body exploded in midair like a firework, causing a small rain of blood in the immediate area. 56. The Divine Art of Suzaku Feathering, Tianwu Mountain. Seeing the three venerables, whom she had known for many years, die by their own famous ultimate skills, Vermilion Bird felt a touch of emotion. There was grief, but also relief. The deeper one interacted with Lu Changsheng, the more one would understand his terrifying and despair-inducing strength. To become his enemy was undoubtedly a great misfortune. I just wonder how astonishing the speed of the Alliance leader's Vermilion Bird wing evasion will be. Vermilion Bird also felt a hint of anticipation. The Vermilion Bird True Art also recorded an ultimate skill called Vermilion Bird Wing Evasion, which allowed one to construct a pair of fiery red wings on their back using Vermilion Bird Protective Aura, doubling their speed until the protective aura was exhausted and the fiery red wings dissipated. If the Alliance leader were to use this ultimate skill, would his speed increase 2 or 3 times? Vermilion Bird was quite curious. The aftermath here is left for you to handle. Additionally, since the 3 great venerables are dead, take over their subordinate forces as quickly as possible. After slaying the 3 rats who liked to hide in the gutters, Lu Chengsheng regained the demeanor of a superior. Yes, Alliance leader, Vermilion Bird replied respectfully. The demon sect leader rarely managed affairs, so taking over other halls was not difficult for her. Subsequently, a pair of 3-meter-long fiery red wings unfolded from Lu Chengsheng's back, pushing Vermilion Bird aside. Looking at these wings, Vermilion Bird's eyes showed a hint of infatuation. So long, so large, moving on the ground, it's estimated that even a shadow wouldn't be seen, right? The 4 golden flowers also had eyes full of wonder at this moment. After all, what woman doesn't like shiny things? Temporarily confine these 4 women and prevent them from contacting outsiders, lest they say anything they shouldn't. Lu Chengsheng's gaze swept over the 4 indifferently, then with a flap of his wings, he suddenly shot into the sky, transforming into a red streak of light and disappearing into the distant horizon. That's right, he just flew away. Flew away. This isn't right, is it? Vermilion Bird remained in place, dumbfounded. Vermilion Bird wing evasion is to increase your movement speed, not to make you fly directly. Flight. For those in the Jianggu, it only existed in legends. Some experts in lightness skill might be able to achieve a brief period of levitation, but it was still far from true flight. But Lu Chengsheng was not levitating, nor was he gliding. He was truly soaring in the air like a large bird. Initially, Lu Chengsheng hadn't thought he could fly, but after the 4 true arts reached perfection, he discovered that his protective aura was so immensely powerful that the vermilion wings formed could actually glide in the air. And after the thick earth art was completed with its subsequent content, the Hu-2 heavenly protective aura cultivated from it possessed extreme stability, allowing for the construction of delicate objects. Lu Chengsheng then utilized the characteristics of Hu-2 heavenly protective aura, combined with knowledge of bird wing structures and aerodynamics from his previous life, to modify the Vermilion Bird wing evasion. After 5 or 6 days and hundreds of simulations, he finally created the current vermilion wings that could fly. In other words, to achieve his dream of flight, Lu Chengsheng literally burned tens of millions of taels of silver. However, Lu Chengsheng didn't feel any heartache. Money was meant to be spent, and exchanging 10 million taels of silver for the ability to fly was too good a deal. Let alone Lu Chengsheng, who was the ceiling of Jianggu strength. Even if you gave this choice to an ordinary person, they would certainly agree. Of course, provided they truly had 10 million taels of silver. The current Vermilion Bird wing evasion, no, it has completely departed from the scope of the Vermilion Bird true art. Perhaps it should be called the Vermilion Bird Ascension Divine Skill. It allows Lu Chengsheng to fly 1,000 li per hour, which is 2,000 li in 1 shichen. In other words, the current Lu Chengsheng can truly travel 10,000 li in a day. To the Wutong in the morning and the A micro in the evening, seeing the blue sky and climbing the white sun. This is the most accurate portrayal of Lu Chengsheng's current state. However, the only minor flaw is that even with Lu Chengsheng's current extremely profound protective aura, he can only maintain flight for 1 shichen at a time, after which he must spend more than half a shichen without distraction to fully replenish his protective aura. The 7th level of Muscle Forging Classic at perfection allows Lu Chengsheng to cultivate an additional 7 internal skills, plus the original 1, totaling 8 internal skills. Liu Changsheng has now cultivated 7 internal skills, including the 4 true arts, thick earth art, godly blade slash, and flying immortal sword scripture. For the last internal skill, Liu Changsheng has always wanted to find an internal skill similar to Nine Yang divine skill that generates internal energy endlessly. Unfortunately, he searched this continent upside down in the simulator but could not find such a cultivation technique. Yuanwu Mountain, located 30 li southeast of Sanhe City. This place was originally called Yuanqing Mountain, but after Liu Changsheng decided to establish the Martial Alliance headquarters here, he renamed it Tianwu Mountain. At this moment, it was bustling with activity. Thousands of craftsmen and tens of thousands of laborers were transforming this 800-meter-high mountain. Buildings were rising from the ground, demonstrating the power of humans to reshape nature. On a platform on the mountainside, a wealthy middle-aged man, adorned in gold and jade, dressed in extravagant attire, was scolding dozens of his subordinates for the slow progress of the project. Just then, a ball of fire suddenly descended from the sky, emitting an extremely powerful aura. Everyone involuntarily stumbled backward, creating a large open space, and in the center of the area, a handsome white-clothed youth suddenly appeared. "Greetings, Alliance leader." Seeing the newcomer, everyone was greatly startled and knelt down in homage. The stout middle-aged man, who had been sent tumbling by the strong air current, ignored the dust on his clothes and the weeds on his head. He scrambled on all fours to the white-clothed youth, fawningly smiling. "Alliance leader, what brings you here?" The white-clothed youth was naturally Liu Changsheng. He said indifferently, "I came to check on the project progress and, by the way, count the silver." Upon hearing this, the stout middle-aged man's smile widened even more. "Alliance leader, I have been supervising the work day and night these past few days. If you just give me another month, no, 20 days, the headquarters building will definitely be completed. As for the silver, 3 million taels have been delivered in total these past few days. They are all in the underground vault. I will take you there now." Soon after, the stout middle-aged man accompanied Liu Changsheng to a stone door. The stone door rumbled open, and Liu Changsheng walked in alone. Seeing this, the stout middle-aged man finally breathed a sigh of relief, wiping the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. He was originally Deng Tong, the wealthiest merchant in Qingzhou. In Qingzhou, he wasn't exactly summoning wind and rain, but he certainly had everything he wanted. However, such good days ended after the Martial Alliance extended an invitation to him. Martial Alliance. This burgeoning behemoth that had, in an extremely short time, suppressed and absorbed all the Jianggu forces in Qingzhou. Deng Tong had thought that they would mind their own business, but he never expected that after rectifying all the Jianggu forces in Qingzhou, they would extend their reach to all merchant associations and wealthy merchants. Merchant associations and wealthy merchants with even a little wealth received an invitation to join the Martial Alliance. Those who agreed needed to hand over their current silver. Those who disagreed would have their homes raided and their clans exterminated, leaving no scraps behind. 57. The magic pill. Brother Faji, please don't do it. Such cruel methods were akin to open rebellion, causing extreme shock throughout Zhao. However, under such tense circumstances, Zhao Linghai, the prefect of Qingzhou, claimed illness and refused to see anyone, so the imperial court had no choice but to send a new prefect to quell the chaos. As soon as the new prefect arrived, he ordered the 200,000-strong army stationed in Qingzhou to encircle and annihilate the Martial Alliance. But on the eve of the encirclement, all levels of military commanders died inexplicably, and the body of the new prefect was even cut into pieces, as if he had been subjected to 1,000 cuts. From then on, no one mentioned the encirclement again, and the Martial Alliance effectively became the uncrowned king of Qingzhou. Upon seeing this, Deng Tong naturally gave up all hope and, willingly, joined the Martial Alliance. Every wealthy merchant who joined the Martial Alliance had to hand over all the cash in his family, and Deng Tong was no exception. Fortunately, the overly young Martial Alliance master greatly appreciated Deng Tong's talent, not only leaving him 1% of the cash but also making him the general manager of the project to build the Martial Alliance headquarters. This was a lucrative position, where he could easily enrich himself. Moreover, he also held power and was highly influential. However, he hadn't been happy for long before he encountered something terrifying, managing the cash collected by the Martial Alliance from various parts of Qingzhou. Previously, these silver ingots were managed by a merchant named Song Wanjin, but his youngest son, Song Feiyu, inexplicably drowned, and Song Wanjin was too heartbroken to manage affairs, so this task fell to him. This was a lucrative position, he initially thought so, but when the silver from various parts of Qingzhou was transported in, as long as the Martial Alliance master went in once, no matter how much silver there was, it would disappear without a trace. The vault, which could originally only hold a maximum of 5 million taels of silver, had now accumulated 18 million taels, yet it showed no signs of filling up. Deng Tong even wondered if this young Martial Alliance master was human or ghost, so much so that every time he saw him, Deng Tong would break out in a cold sweat, fearing that he would turn into a vengeful spirit and devour him. Before long, the stone door rumbled open again, but this time Lu Chengsheng walked out from inside, complaining, "There's less and less silver." A few days ago, 5 days were enough for him to collect 6 or 7 million taels of silver, but now 5 days only yielded 3 million, which was a drastic cut. Only Zheng Tong heard these words, his face twitched, unsure how to respond. For the past half-month, the Martial Alliance had almost plundered 1/5 of the silver in the Qingzhou market, and Qingzhou was now experiencing a shortage of silver. The silver collected in the future would only become less and less. Lu Chengsheng naturally knew that Qingzhou's resources had been largely exploited, and any further scraping would be down to the bone. But his goal was never just a small Qingzhou, but the entire Zhao. Qingzhou had been scraped almost dry, so the Martial Alliance's influence should now spread to other surrounding states. However, silver was not the most crucial thing for him right now, the most crucial thing was how to proceed. He initially thought that by cultivating the 4 true arts to perfection and then, combining the 4 into one, he would be able to break through beyond the innate realm. However, he tried more than a dozen times in the simulator, and each time he forcibly attempted to break through, his physical body was torn apart by the violent heaven and earth origin qi. So he went into hiding for several decades, specifically observing how the demon sect leader achieved his breakthrough. After multiple observations and studies, he finally discovered that the demon sect leader used a blood sacrifice method, combined with the neutral and inclusive characteristics of the muscle-forging classic internal energy, to fuse the azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and his own demonic technique, 5 types of Gang Yuan, into a single demonic pill. When wielding this demonic pill, he would unleash power far exceeding that of a great Grand Master. Just how strong was it? Lu Chengsheng in the simulator once estimated that the demon sect leader with the demonic pill could probably fight 6 or 7 floating light sword masters alone. Unfortunately, he was still suppressed and crushed by Lu Chengsheng, who had not yet broken through beyond the innate realm. Because the current Lu Chengsheng, even without breaking through beyond the innate realm, could single-handedly defeat 10 floating light sword masters. Being weak was one thing, but Lu Chengsheng also discovered that this method of forging a qi pill was merely a heterodox approach, not a legitimate method of breakthrough. In the simulator, Lu Chengsheng discovered from an ancient text in the Jin Country Imperial Collection that the truly legitimate way to break through beyond the innate realm was to cause a transformation in one's physical body that transcends its current life form. And as long as one reached the Grand Master realm, they could use a special secret method to allow Gang Yuan to nourish their physical body, gradually completing this transformation. This transformation process is normally extremely slow, but it can be accelerated by wielding heaven and earth origin qi and consuming heaven and earth treasure. This is also why only great Grand Masters who have opened their qi apertures are qualified to break through beyond the innate realm. Because if one cannot even wield heaven and earth origin qi, it is almost impossible to complete this transformation. Unfortunately, Lu Chengsheng currently lacks this special secret method that allows Gang Yuan to nourish the physical body. And the demon sect leader also did not have this secret method, otherwise he would not have used a heterodox method to break through. Besides using this special secret method to break through, I actually have another option, and that is to deduce the subsequent cultivation technique of the great antiquity dragon elephant art. A glint flashed in Lu Chengsheng's eyes. Beyond the innate realm lies the transformation of the physical body. And when he broke through to the 12th level of the dragon elephant, his body subtly felt a sense of transformation and sublimation. If he continued down the path of the great antiquity dragon elephant art, there should also be an opportunity for breakthrough. Initially, he was only frustrated that the great antiquity dragon elephant art was slow to break through, leading to a stagnation in his strength, which caused him to focus his energy on internal skill. Now that his internal skill had encountered a bottleneck, he could completely seek a breakthrough in his hard cultivation. Of course, he would not give up on the special secret method that allows internal skill to nourish the physical body. Both paths are unknown. With his current financial resources, he naturally had to pursue both vigorously. Although he could not determine which path would achieve a breakthrough first, as long as there was a glimmer of hope for breakthrough, he would never give up. First, I'll get my hands on the Vajra indestructible scripture from Jinfo Temple. The continued breakthrough of the great antiquity dragon elephant art should lie within this scripture. Lu Chengsheng muttered to himself, his figure disappearing from the spot. As for Deng Tong, he had long grown accustomed to the martial alliance master's elusive appearances. However, once Lu Chengsheng left, he felt much more at ease, grateful that he could live a little longer. Liangzhou, Jinfo Mountain. Looking from high above, the mountain is filled with various large Buddha statues. How much manpower and resources must have been spent? As expected of a 1,000-year-old ancient temple, what a grand scale. Lu Chengsheng looked at the no less than 100 outdoor stone Buddha statues, each over 10 meters high, below him, feeling a surge of emotion. Jinfo Temple had been located here for 1,000 years, transforming Jinfo Mountain into a Buddhist Pure Land. After finding a hidden spot in the back mountain, Lu Chengsheng descended. He remembered that Reverend Cheng Guang often resided in the back mountain. Jinfo Temple was over 3,000 li from Sanhe City. Even the fastest 1,000 li horse would take 3 days and 3 nights to travel, yet Lu Chengsheng only took less than half a day to arrive here, which demonstrated the terrifying ability of aerial movement. Lu Chengsheng walked along the bluestone path, using his qi to sense and search for the presence of Master Chengguang, when suddenly his expression changed, and he left the bluestone path, heading towards a secluded thicket. Senior brother Fa Jia, no. A pleading voice came from within the thicket. A deep, husky voice followed. Junior brother Fa Bin, you know that Jinfo Temple is full of rough men. You're the only one who's a bit delicate and handsome. Senior brother couldn't help but come to you because he was pent up. Please fulfill senior brother's wish. 58. How domineering and arrogant is this? Fa Bin, Fa Jia. Upon hearing their conversation, Lu Chengsheng felt a flicker of understanding. The cause of today leads to the fruit of tomorrow. No wonder Fa Bin performed so poorly decades later. It turns out he had a heart demon obstructing his Tao. Lu Chengsheng waved his robe, and a strong gust of wind instantly swept out 2 shirtless monks from the bushes. One looked about 18 or 19, with a strong physique and a very imposing presence. The other had delicate features, was much younger, around 15 or 16, and his face was filled with lingering shock and the relief of having escaped a disaster. The strong young monk, seeing his good deed interrupted, was both surprised and enraged. He roared at Lu Chengsheng, who are you, daring to trespass into a vital area of my Jinfo Temple? Under broad daylight, you dare to engage in such a sordid affair with your junior brother. I wonder if the ancestral masters of your Jinfo Temple would be so angered as to come back to life if they knew, Lu Chengsheng said with a playful smile. Nonsense. I see you trespassing in the back mountain with ill intentions. Take this. Seeing his wicked deeds exposed, Fa Jia's expression turned vicious. He lunged forward, intending to kill to silence, completely forgetting where the recent strong wind had come from. Be careful, Fa Bin, seeing his senior brother lunge, felt a pang of unwillingness and shouted a warning. He knew that although his senior brother had a terrible character, his martial arts were top-notch among his peers, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to enter and exit the back mountain so freely. Unfortunately, Fa Jia had only lunged halfway and hadn't even gotten close when 4 streams of qi suddenly burst forth, piercing his limbs and causing him to fall to the ground, wailing and screaming in agony. Oh, what a wicked creature, actually sneaking into Jinfo Temple to commit violence. Several sounds of clothes fluttering indicated that nearby great masters had heard the commotion and were rushing over. Soon, several old monks in grey robes and cloth shoes appeared. When they saw Fa Jia's miserable state, their eyes seemed to spit fire. Fa Jia had exceptionally good bones and was one of the leading figures of the Fa generation. Unexpectedly, he had been harmed by a villain within the temple today. I am merely cleaning house for your Jinfo Temple. If you don't believe me, you can ask the Buddhist disciple in front of you, Lu Chengsheng said, casually picking his ear. Fa Bin, what exactly happened here? A gaunt old monk turned to look at Fa Bin. Fa Jia knew the situation was serious. Ignoring the pain, he quickly shouted, A junior brother Fa Bin, you must answer truthfully. Senior brother will testify for you. A. The threat was clear. Fa Bin clasped his hands together, his face showing a struggle. Finally, he closed his eyes in pain and said, A senior brother Fag lured me here under the pretext of discussing Buddhist teachings, intending to engage in Long Yang. I thought I was doomed, but fortunately, I was saved by this lay practitioner. A. What? Such an absurd thing happening in a pure Buddhist land. A. The great masters looked at each other, dumbfounded. At this moment, one of the great masters suddenly looked at Lu Changsheng and resolutely said, This matter is of great importance and must not be spread, otherwise the reputation of our Jin Fo temple, a 1,000-year-old ancient temple, will be ruined in an instant. A personal disciple of the Prajna's head monk was going to do such a thing to a Buddhist disciple. If it got out, people in the Jianggu would surely mock Jin Fo temple. A senior brother is right. A. The others exchanged glances and also surrounded him. I have truly witnessed the hypocrisy of the great masters of Jin Fo temple today. A. Lu Changsheng laughed heartily, then suddenly pinched his index finger, as if lightly sniffing a flower, and then gently flicked it 5 times. A flower nipping finger technique. A. The 5 old monks exclaimed in surprise, then felt a pain in their chests. Looking down, they saw a bloodied hole. The 5 old monks then collapsed to the ground. Fa Bin stood rooted to the spot, still reeling from the shock of the 5 junior martial uncles trying to kill to silence, only to see them suddenly fall into a pool of blood. For a moment, his brain stopped functioning. If he remembered correctly, these Grand Masters were all Grand Masters, weren't they? How could they be instantly killed by a Buddhist ultimate skill? What realm was this white-clothed youth in? You actually killed 5 junior martial uncles. You are finished. You won't leave Jin Fo temple alive today. A. Seeing this, Fagia lay on the ground, laughing maniacally, as if dragging someone down with him before death wasn't so bad. Lu Changsheng ignored Fagia, not even making a move to escape. He stayed where he was, pointed at Fagia, and asked Fa Bin, should someone who defiles your purity and destroys your Buddhist heart be killed? A. Fa Bin was stunned for a moment, then subconsciously said, he should be killed. A. Then why don't you act? A. Fa Bin's face showed a struggle, and he finally lowered his head in dejection. Fagia laughed triumphantly at this. Lu Changsheng cold Nati stand that goose-like cackle and kindly stomped on his neck, abruptly ending his laughter. Then, he glanced at Fa Bin again and shook his head. I gave you a chance, but it was no use. Bin was indeed still very weak. Dong, dong, dinga. The urgent tolling of bells sounded, and numerous monks of Jin Fo temple, armed with staves, entered the back mountain. Clearly, the anomaly here had been reported by other great masters cultivating in the back mountain. Soon, a large group of monks surrounded Lu Changsheng. At the forefront were Abbot Weining, as well as the head monks of the Bodhi Hall, Disciplinary Hall, and Prajna Hall. Great Master Wei Tong, the head monk of the Arhat Hall, who had a master-disciple relationship with Lu Changsheng in the simulator, was also among them. Amitabha, why has this benefactor trespassed into a vital area of my Jin Fo temple and murdered 5 junior martial uncles? Abbot Huanenga's face was filled with sorrow as he saw the bodies on the ground, and he asked in a deep voice. And my disciple, Fagia, also fell victim to your cruel hand. A tall monk with bulging muscles next to Abbot Weining clenched his fists, making a crack a sound, his face filled with rage. Fagia had exceptionally good bones and a loyal, honest character. He often selflessly scrubbed the backs of his senior and junior brothers, and his reputation among the disciples was quite good. Wei Shang, the head monk of the Prajna Hall, had already been cultivating Fagia to be the next head monk of the Prajna Hall, but unexpectedly, he too was killed by this mysterious person. This mysterious person clearly had the strength to kill a Grand Master, yet did not spare even a junior who was not even an 8. This was truly deranged. However, what awaited both Wei Neng and Wei Shang was not Lu Changsheng's answer, but an unparalleled flash of a blade. The white blade light was dazzling and brilliant, even in broad daylight, its radiance could not be concealed. Moreover, it was incredibly fast, completely surpassing the reaction speed limits of all the monks on the scene. As soon as the blade light flashed, Wei Shang saw dozens of headless corpses standing upright below, one of which looked incredibly familiar. Isn't it that my body? With that last thought, his consciousness completely plunged into darkness. The abbot and the head monks of the various halsa were all killed by that villain with a single strike. Only the Buddhist disciple and great master Wei Tong of the Arhat Hall survived. The thousands of monks on the scene gasped in disbelief. Entering Jin Fo Temple alone, first killing 5 junior martial uncles, and then almost wiping out the head monks and elders of the various halls. How overbearing and arrogant was this? Who else had accomplished this in the past 1,000 years? In this world, only the white-clothed youth before them had done so. Unfortunately, this was just the beginning. 59. The killing spree, Cheng Guang regrets. Lu Chengsheng swung his long saber again. Clouds surged, endless saber chi filled the void realm, and under the terrified and fearful gazes of thousands of monks, the saber chi flew down, sending mutilated corpses flying and grinding flesh and bone into mud. More than 1,000 monks had no power to retaliate and were quickly more than half dead or injured. Master Chengguang, if you don't show yourself soon, your disciples and grand disciples will all be slaughtered by me. Lu Chengsheng's voice was like a great bell, spreading throughout the entire back mountain. He hadn't forgotten that the purpose of his trip had always been the Vajra indestructible scripture in Master Chengguang's hands. Fa Bin's matter could only be considered a minor interlude. His chi sensing had not found any trace of Chengguang. Logically, this was impossible. A great grandmaster's chi apertures are always open, their body integrated with heaven and earth. As long as 2 great grandmasters are within a certain distance, they can definitely sense each other. Lu Chengsheng had initially thought Master Chengguang was not in the temple. But when he had just struck down and killed 5 grey-robed eminent monks, a subtle chi suddenly flashed and disappeared again. At this point, how could Lu Chengsheng not understand that this old monk had deliberately sealed his chi apertures, hiding from him? It just so happened that Wei Nang and others had delivered themselves to his doorstep. Lu Chengsheng couldn't possibly debate with them for 3 days and 3 nights, could he? So, he simply went on a killing spree, to see if Master Chengguang would come out. From the simulator, it was known that this monk Chengguang valued legacy extremely highly and would not allow him to continue his wanton slaughter. Sure enough, not long after, an old sigh came from afar. Amitabha, why does this benefactor persist in persecuting us? Subsequently, a massive golden character appeared in midair. Its light was dazzling, as if a second sun had appeared in the sky. Deliver all beings. As the aged voice fell, the symbol released a vast and pure Buddhist light. This Buddhist light contained the intention of sacrificing oneself to deliver all sentient beings. Countless saber chi in the void realm, illuminated by this Buddhist light, seemed to be purified. First, their power greatly diminished, and then they gradually dissipated into nothingness. Afterward, the symbol also exhausted its power and dissipated along with them. Its ancestral master Chengguang has made a move. The surviving monks wept tears of joy. No one wanted to experience that kind of helpless slaughter again. Chengguang, you finally couldn't hold back. Lu Chengsheng looked out and saw a gray figure floating down from the mountainside, not touching the ground, crossing hundreds of feet in a few leaps. This kind of lightness skill was considered miraculous to 99% of Zhonggu practitioners. The gray figure landed, revealing a withered old monk. This old monk's white beard hung down to his chest, his face was full of wrinkles, and his eyes were cloudy, looking exactly like an old man on his last legs. If ordinary Zhonggu people saw him, they would think he was an old man whose lifespan was nearing its end, but a trace of solemnity appeared on Lu Chengsheng's face. This is a complete return to simplicity, deeply hiding one's essence, blood, and origin chi, causing one's physical body to undergo a certain transformation in an alternative way. Although the completion of the transformation is far off, it is ultimately a kind of exploration and attempt for the path ahead. His strength also far surpasses that of an ordinary great grandmaster, probably enough to contend with the demon sect leader. Lu Chengsheng's eyes held both admiration and surprise. What he admired was Chengguang's high talent and comprehension ability, that he could find a Tao leading beyond innate. Perhaps this was the myriad Taos, all leading to the same destination. The surprise was that this method was also of great use to Lu Chengsheng. If this method could be completely perfected, it might allow him to create a special secret technique that would allow his Gangyuan to nourish his physical body. Amitabha, ancestral master Chengguang said, may I ask why this benefactor wishes to see this old monk? In fact, when Lu Chengsheng first arrived at Jin Fo Temple, ancestral master Chengguang had already sensed his presence. Lu Changsheng's aura was too powerful, like the vast starry sky, it was difficult to pretend not to see him. However, precisely because Lu Changsheng was too strong, Ancestral Master Cheng Guang dared not show himself rashly without knowing his intentions. Now that Lu Changsheng had called him out by name, it was impossible for him to feign deafness and dumbness, unless he truly had the heart to let Lu Changsheng slaughter his disciples and grand disciples. This time, I have come for your temple's Vajra indestructible scripture. Lu Changsheng stood with his hands behind his back, naturally exuding an immense aura of power, forming a stark contrast with the emaciated Ancestral Master Cheng Guang. Vajra indestructible scripture. Many monks on the scene looked bewildered. Did their Jinfo temple have this scripture? Lu Changsheng was not surprised by this. This scripture was only known to the Ancestral Master, the abbot, and the Buddhist sun in Jinfo temple. Even the head monks of various halls and courtyards did not know about it, and some even mistakenly spread it as the Vajra indestructible divine skill. So, the benefactor has come for this scripture. Ancestral Master Cheng Guang felt a hint of regret in his heart. Although the Vajra indestructible scripture was exceptionally precious, only those who possessed both extraordinary comprehension ability and profound Buddhist dharma could gain insights from it. Even if it were occasionally leaked, its impact on Jinfo temple would not be significant. If he had known earlier that Lu Changsheng had come for this scripture, he would have shown himself sooner. Why then would hundreds of core monks have to die or be injured? However, now I am more interested in Great Master Cheng Guang, Lu Changsheng suddenly said. Interested in this old monk? Great Master Cheng Guang was a little confused, not understanding Lu Changsheng's intentions. Meanwhile, Buddhist son Fa Bin, not far away, was greatly startled, muttering to himself, could this benefactor in front of me be another senior brother Fa Jia? It's just that Ancestral Master is so old, I wonder if he can withstand his torment. If Lu Changsheng knew what Fa Bin was thinking, he would definitely flick his little chest and yell at him, "You're a victim, yes, but don't think everyone else is a perpetrator. I see that Great Master has walked extremely far on the path of a great Grand Master. Today, I sincerely ask for guidance, and I hope Great Master will grant me a match." Lu Changsheng directly challenged him, his entire being seemingly transforming into a long saber, sharp saber chi swirling around him. The hundreds of surviving monks, just by looking at him, felt an unbearable stinging pain in their eyes, as if struck by a saber, and could not help but retreat, their hearts filled with dread. Since the benefactor invites, this old monk can only accompany you to the death. Ancestral Master Cheng Guang clasped his hands together, sighed, and his body began to emit golden light. In terms of strength, Cheng Guang believed himself to be no less than any Ancestral Master in Jinfo Temple's history. Even if Lu Changsheng gave him an unfathomable feeling, he did not believe Lu Changsheng could easily defeat him. Haha, Great Master is finally having a good time. I thought you would refuse. After Lu Changsheng finished speaking, he strode forward like a dragon and tiger, instantly crossing dozens of meters, and formed his 5 fingers into a claw, striking down towards Master Cheng Guang. This was precisely the dragon claw hand from the entire Buddhist temple. In the simulator, Lu Changsheng had already learned most of Jinfo Temple's ultimate techniques, and now was the perfect time to verify them with Cheng Guang. Boom! Before the claw technique even reached, the flagstones beneath Cheng Guang's feet were already riddled with holes, and the surrounding air instantly thickened, subtly forming a vortex that pressed towards Cheng Guang in the center. 60. The Withered Cicada Method, the actions of Tianji Pavilion. Oh, what a superb dragon claw hand! I did not expect the layman to also be proficient in our Buddhist martial arts. Master Cheng Guang exclaimed in admiration, countering with his own dragon claw hand. In an instant, he seemed to transform into a grey dragon, its shadow flying through the air, attempting to break through Lu Changsheng's claw. This move was executed with transcendent skill, dazzling the monks and causing them to sigh inwardly, thinking, "A is expected of the Ancestral Master, he does not act unless he has to, but when he does, is astonishing. Just then, Lu Changsheng suddenly changed his claw into a palm, striking down with a slow motion that seemed to contain little immense power, yet it slammed the grey dragon into the ground. Ancestral Master! The monks exclaimed in unison. Oh, what a limitless strength Vajra palm! A low voice came from underground, followed by a thunderous tremor, as if a subterranean dragon had turned over, and the floor surged towards Lu Changsheng in waves. Lu Changsheng brought his 5 fingers together, changing his palm into a fist, and with a single clench, the air roared. Amidst the converging chi currents, Lu Changsheng struck out with Aar het fist, hitting the surging stone slabs head-on. Booma! The stone slabs shattered, raising a cloud of dust, and from within came the sound of a bell ringing, its sound shaking the surroundings. As the dust settled, a large golden bell appeared on Master Chungwang's body. There was a fist print on the bell, and from the center of the print, cracks spread, almost shattering it completely. A great master, your golden bell cover has already reached the transcendent stage. Not only does it have no weaknesses, but it can also channel 90% of the force into the earth. Even if several grand masters attacked together, it could probably withstand them for a moment. Lu Changsheng did not hesitate to offer his praise. Layman, you flatter me. Your Arhat fist has also grasped its essence. If you were to strike again, this old monka's golden bell cover wouldn't be able to withstand it. Master Chungwang dispelled the golden bell cover, revealing his true form. Although his clothes were tattered, he had no injuries on his body. Lu Changsheng's eyes lit up at this. A great master is indeed durable. I still have dozens of Buddhist absolute techniques, please guide me through each one. Amitabha, this person is so arrogant, actually treating the ancestral master as a sandbag. The surviving monks exchanged glances, all feeling a surge of anger, hoping that the ancestral master would unleash his divine might and teach this person a good lesson. Subsequently, the two collided again. This time was much more intense than before. Everyone only saw two figures crossing paths, leaving deep ravines in their wake, and soon, every rock and tree in the back mountain was ruined beyond recognition. Amidst the violent explosions in the back mountain, the monks swayed and stumbled, their faces pale, as if they were experiencing a terrifying, catastrophic scene. After a long time, the two figures separated. Lu Changsheng was completely unharmed, while Master Chungwang looked rather miserable, bruised and swollen, with various fist prints, palm prints, and finger marks all over his body, a dark mess. Lu Changsheng landed on a large boulder and smiled. These dozens of Buddhist absolute techniques I displayed, I wonder if they met with the great Mastera's approval. The battered ancestral master Chungwang's face was ashen, and he remained silent for a long time, looking as if he wished to die. In reality, Lu Changsheng had only used 20% of his strength, and even then, he had to be careful during the exchange, fearing that he might accidentally kill Master Chungwang. Of course, he would never say these words, otherwise Master Chungwang would not just feel like dying, but his Buddhist heart would be shattered. After this battle, everyone at Jinfo Temple was thoroughly convinced by Lu Changsheng, and ancestral Master Chungwang quickly handed the Vajra indestructible scripture to Lu Changsheng. However, after obtaining the Vajra indestructible scripture, Lu Changsheng did not leave immediately. Instead, he discussed with Master Chungwang the method on his body that utilized qi and origin qi to slowly transform the physical body. Master Chungwang said that this was a method he had comprehended from the Vajra indestructible scripture, and he named it a Kucha meditation technique. The key to cultivating the Kucha meditation technique lies in continuously accumulating vitality within the body. The specific method is to use heaven and earth origin qi to strengthen the qi, and then use the qi to nourish the flesh, bones, and internal organs. The stronger the flesh, bones, and internal organs, naturally, the more abundant the body's vitality. This is the entire mystery of the Kucha meditation technique. After listening, Lu Changsheng curiously asked why he didn't directly use heaven and earth origin qi to strengthen the physical body, but instead added the step of strengthening the qi. Master Chungwang shook his head upon hearing this, saying that he had not found a way to directly use heaven and earth origin qi to strengthen the physical body, and that qi was originally produced by the physical body. The stronger the physical body, the more abundant the qi. Conversely, the stronger the qi, the more it would nourish the physical body, and even slowly cause certain changes in the physical body. However, the Kucha meditation technique that Master Chungwang comprehended from the Vajra indestructible scripture only contained the method of using heaven and earth origin qi to strengthen the qi, while the process of qi nourishing the physical body was a natural change that occurred when the qi became stronger, and there was no method in the Kucha meditation technique to assist it. After clarifying the principles of the Kucha meditation technique, Lu Changsheng suddenly had an idea. Could he use the Kucha meditation technique to break the limits of his great antiquity dragon elephant art and truly break through to the 13th level? Also, the longer one cultivates the Kucha meditation technique, the more terrifying the accumulated vitality becomes. If he were to cultivate the Kucha meditation technique for tens of thousands of years in the simulator, what kind of changes would his physical body undergo? Thinking of this, after learning the Kucha meditation technique, Lu Chengsheng also visited Jinfo Templia's silver vault, acquiring 3 million taels of silver, and then hastily took the Vajra indestructible scripture, bidding farewell to the black-faced master Chengguang. He was already impatient to go back and simulate it. Meanwhile, 7 to 8,000 miles away, in Wu country. The highest mountain in Wu country is named Tianyan Mountain. It is said that from the highest peak of Tianyan Mountain, one can overlook the sea of clouds and also admire the scene of thunder. Unfortunately, for most people in Wu country, this is merely a legend, its authenticity unverified. Because Tianyan Mountain is the territory of Tianji Pavilion. And in Wu country, the prestige of Tianji Pavilion is even greater than that of the imperial court. If you offend the imperial court, you might still have a chance to live, but if you dare to offend Tianji Pavilion, it will quickly let you know what it means to have no way to ascend to heaven or descend into the earth. Therefore, no one dared to trespass on Tianyan Mountain. At this moment, at the peak of Tianyan Mountain, the vast sun was setting in the west, and endless rays of light dyed the sky-high sea of clouds red. An old man with white hair and beard, possessing an immortal demeanor, sat cross-legged at the peak of Tianyan Mountain, his eyes closed. Soon after, a tall man with a somewhat decadent demeanor arrived and lazily said to the old man with closed eyes, master, little Chi said you were looking for me." The old man slowly opened his eyes, and a flash of lightning seemed to flicker in the void realm. "I heard that a mysterious Grand Master of unknown origin has appeared in Zhao. Han Feng, as the current wandering the world of Tianji Pavilion, it is your inescapable duty to ascertain this persona's identity." Yes, disciple accepts the order. The young man named Han Fenga bowed weakly, not feeling surprised. This was an old tradition of Tianji Pavilion. Every Grand Master on this continent had to be recorded by Tianji Pavilion, and their fate predicted, to see if they were the person the first-generation founder had foretold.